It is now 7 p.m. I'm going to start the webinar.
Good evening. I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of the Parks and Recreation Commission on July 23rd, 2024. We will begin with a roll call.
Chair Brown.
Here.
Vice Chair Freeman. Here. Commissioner Cribbs.
Here.
Commissioner Greenfield.
Here.
Commissioner Kleinhaus.
Yeah.
Commissioner Oche.
Yeah, please.
Chair, that's 6 present.
Thank you. Moving on to public comment. This public comment period is for members of the public wishing to address the commission on matters within the jurisdiction of the city, but not on this agenda. If you do have a comment on a specific agenda item, please wait until that time to raise your hand on Zoom or turn in a speaker card for that item. Do we have any public comment at this time?
Chair, I'm seeing 2 hands raised online.
Okay.
1 second while I get this going.
Thank you.
Our first speaker is Dashel. Dashel, you have 3 minutes and you've been unmuted.
Hello, my name is Dashel Leeds. I'm the Conservation Coordinator for the Sierra Club Loma Prieta chapter. I'd like to ask a quick question about the Palo Alto Airport Long-Range Facilities and Sustainability Plan. The Sierra Club is concerned with the potential loss of parklands and baylands. Regarding the alternatives in the plan, it seems like most of the alternatives involve the use of parkland in some way, with the exception of the no action alternative. And given that the use of parkland is part of this planning process, has the Parks and Rec Commission been looking into this? We think it would be helpful if the commission could clarify what the potential impacts of airport expansion could be on parkland. Thank you for your time.
Our next speaker is Diane. Diane, you've been unmuted and you have 3 minutes to speak. Diane, you've been unmuted and you have 3 minutes to speak.
Okay, now can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, sorry about that. My name is Diane McCoy. Thank you for letting me share this evening. I've been a resident of Palo Alto since 1978. I'm a volunteer for Santa Clara Valley Audubon and the Environmental Volunteers, whose office is in the historical Sea Scout building, now the Eco Center. But most of all, I'm one of the annual 80,000 plus visitors to the Palo Alto Baylands, which includes families, hikers, students of all ages, birders, day campers, kayakers, joggers, bikers, and many more who visit the Baylands Preserve, many on a regular basis. The duck pond and its loop trail is an important part of many visitors' experiences, just as the traditional Moonlight Run and Walk is every year, taking place this year on September 20th. But I'm very concerned and worried, as many people are, about the Palo Alto Airport's ideas to expand. 3 of the 5 alternatives impact the preserve's wetland marsh area, and 2 of the alternatives want to fill in the duck pond, the adjacent marsh, and the northwest portion of the lagoon. All of this is habitat for plants and wildlife, including 2 federally red listed species, the salt marsh harvest mouse and the Ridgway's rail. Along with nearby Bixby Park and San Francisco Creek, it's a big part of the migration Pacific flyways for thousands of birds each year. Now, cementing over the marsh to create longer, wider, and maybe an additional runway is being considered. And all of this to accommodate rich investors, realtors, and tech who own private larger planes, all of which burn leaded fuel, which will add more pollution, noise, and CO2 emissions in this area. Here and near our close by neighbors in East Palo Alto. Please pay attention to the needs of our future generations. Destroy the wetlands, you destroy our futures. Preservation is progress, and I hope the Parks and Recreation Commissioners oppose the airport expansion plan. Thank you very much for your time and consideration.
Chair, that completes public comment.
Thank you. Moving on to agenda changes, additions, and deletions. Are there any changes from the commission? Okay, seeing none, moving on to approval of the minutes from the June 25th meeting. Are there any proposed edits, clarifications needed? If not, do we have a motion? Oh, no, go ahead.
I do have several
Okay.
things I didn't understand exactly. So on page 5, line 6, she hoped enough people would use it that people do not get overconfident that they could deface the space. And I just wondered if there was another way of saying that.
You said page 5, line 6.
Page 5, line 6, yeah. Maybe the people do not get overconfident and they would deface the space. I'm not so sure what that meaning was.
Not sure. To face the space. I'm not sure about that.
Staff will look into
Staff will look into
page 5.
page 5, line
line
6. Okay.
Is that what was mentioned?
Yes,
Commissioner Cripps?
page 5, line 6.
Got it. Yeah,
Thank you.
staff will review. And if there's any other areas of note, just mention the page and the line.
With the others?
And then page 12, line 11. She mentioned the possibility of park with the sibling city in the youth aspect. So maybe it's just park with the sibling city.
Okay.
And then on page 13.
So, sorry, can you speak in the mic? So, page 12, line
Page 12, line 11.
11, just possibility of park with the sibling city.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then page 13. Where'd it go? 25. Oh, okay. At the very end, Director O'Kane stated members of the Sierra Club local chapter have been sending her lots of information from local neighboring cities and thought they could look into that. I believe she was talking about the studies regarding turf
Yeah, turf. Okay.
rather than high percentage of kids playing sports. Because the way it reads, it looks like,
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Okay.
page 13, line 25, adding that's in relation to the turf.
thank you.
Great.
That's all I have.
Good catches. All right, with those modifications, do we have a motion to approve?
I'll make the motion
Okay,
to
good.
approve.
Second? Great. We have a roll call vote, please.
Chair Brown,
Yes.
Vice Chair Freeman,
Yes.
Commissioner Cripps,
Yes.
Commissioner Greenfield,
Yes.
Commissioner Kleinhouse,
Abstain.
Commissioner Oche.
Yes.
Chair, that's a 5-0 vote with 1 abstain.
Great, thank you. I will move on to the department report.
Good evening, Sarah Robustelli, Community Services Department. I will be kicking off the recreation portion of the department report today. Next slide. So on 4th of July, the city of Palo Alto celebrated its 40th annual chili cook-off and summer festival. I just wanted to give a huge thank you to the commissioners who, many of you volunteered your time that day and were judges. There were, as you know, 10 chili cook-off teams. Approximately 285 gallons of chili was cooked that day. 1,900 wristbands were given out, which is 300 more than last year. And the festival went on from 11 to 3, and there was roughly 2,300 attendees this year. On the left-hand photo of this slide, you'll see the family movie nights, which have been a huge success. They've been taking place in Mitchell Park. We're seeing several hundred attend each time. And then to the right here, the Twilight concert series, which was brought up, we're including here. This, there's been 3 thus far. They're taking place at Rinconada Park as well as Mitchell Park. 3 have happened so far. All have over 1,000 attendees. And there is one that's coming up this weekend, July 27th, which it's from 6:30 to 8. And we encourage you to attend. That one's at Mitchell Park. We'll go to the next slide. We have 2 more family movie nights that are taking place August 2nd and August 16th, which we invite you to. And then this weekend, which I know Steve and I and the Rangers, Javad, we're all really excited about, is the Municipal Service Center, our MSC open house. That's taking place this weekend, Saturday from 10 to 2. There's going to be a lot happening, giveaways. There's going to be games, food, and some of our heavy machinery will be out for display. So we hope to see you there. And then next slide. These are a little bit further out, but these are upcoming, and we just want you to mark your calendar for the Moonlight Run and Walk, September 20th, in our beautiful Baylands open space, and the one of our favorite events, the Jacko Jaunt, which will be taking place in October. And with that, I will take it over to Steve Castile.
Great. Good evening, Commissioners. Steve Castile, Assistant Director of Open Space, Parks, and Golf. A lot of good events coming up. Glad to hear about those. So a couple project updates that I'd like to share with you all. We collaborated with wastewater management, park staff did, to address a few irrigation issues. We have a main pump system over at the golf course that was malfunctioning. And so as you can see here in the left-hand picture here, they supplied basically the assistance with pulling off of the top roof, and then we had to get a crane truck out there to actually pull an underground pump to get this thing fixed. It was a lot of work, a lot of coordination, and staff did a very, very good job to make this happen in a short duration. Another thing that's happening out at the golf course, we're still working, as you all know, on the golf course mitigation project with the local agencies. And so we'll provide updates as they become available on that one, but just want to let you all know that we are moving forward with that one. And then on the slide to the right-hand side, that's our annual athletic field renovation. One thing that we did differently this year, we have a unit on the back, which is basically fractures the ground for the soccer fields and the outfields over there, which is going to create a lot more aeration and a softer playability surface, and is really healthy for the turf. So that's something that we're doing this year, trying it out, and we're going to incorporate that into more fields as we move forward with the reseeding programs that we've got going on for the renovations. Next slide. A couple items of interest coming up on the next PRC meeting. We have the Valley Water Tide Gate Park Improvement Ordinance. With that, As I had mentioned at the last PRC meeting, we can provide an update on the sluice gate operations and address any ongoing concerns. And then in addition to that, we also have the First Tee partnership program that we're working on. We've been collaborating very closely over the last several weeks with them and continue our discussions on further ongoing for the partnership to have that developed. And in addition to that, if you look at the right-hand side of the screen, we heard earlier today, the Palo Alto Airport has announced its long-range facilities and sustainability plan, which can be viewed at the link on the top of the screen or by visiting the City of Palo Alto Airport webpage. And we will be reaching out to them as well to get more information on what's happening with that process as well. Next slide. Couple other ones, Ramos Park restrooms. We had showed you a couple pictures last time of the initial demo, and as of late, they've put in a concrete pathway there. The restroom was placed in there last month, and so the site work of paving was completed this week, and also from last week on that one. Rinconada restrooms, they've also completed the hardscaping around that after the installation. The asphalt that you're seeing there was installed this week. And we are on target for opening in August for both of those restrooms. Next slide. Boulware project. The restrooms have been delivered. Concrete work has started on that project. It is a fairly large project, and so with a lot going on there. The playground installation will be set up next, and they are estimating project completion in the fall. So more to come on that one as we move forward. The other kind of neat one too, which I've seen over the last couple of weeks, is the Cameron Park Improvement Project. We did the demolition of that probably about a week and a half ago.
This slide.
Oh, next slide. Yeah, so we did demolition on that. They did some grading on that, excavation work, and the boxes that you see in the forefront of the picture on the right is the new playground that is anticipated to go in. So we're right on target with that one too for a September opening. And that's next slide. And that's the end of our report.
Thank you. Lots of pictures. We love that. Questions from the commission? Commissioner Greenfield?
Thank you. Thanks for the report, Sarah and Steve. It's very helpful and informative as always. A couple questions real quickly on the chili cook-off. It was a fun event. Glad to see it's ramping back up. It's very popular in the community. You mentioned there were 1,900 wristbands and 2,300 attendees. We didn't run out of wristbands, did we? Everybody who got a wristband wanted to get a wristband got one?
Everyone who wanted a wristband received them.
Great.
That's correct. We are just anticipating that quite a few people attended that also didn't taste chili.
Not for everybody.
Yeah.
Good. Just want to clarify that, but also highlight that there was anybody who wanted to participate was allowed to, or there was a capacity for them to participate, which is awesome. Thank you for all your work on that. Regarding the Ramos restroom, is there plans to put landscaping between some plants between the restroom and the street to soften the street view?
I know that, Steve Castillo, I know that we basically did tear out some of the surrounding shrubbery on that one, but there is a plan for more shrubs, for landscaping to go back in on that site once all the hardscaping is done, yes.
I have heard some comments from neighbors of the area. Great to have a restroom. It's looking quite prominent from the street side. So anything we can do to blend it in would be great.
Absolutely. Glad to hear that.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Questions? Vice Chair Freeman?
Yes, I mirror what Commissioner Greenfield just said about the chili cook-off. Attended the one last year, attended the one this year, and I thought knocked out of the park last year, knocked it further out of the park this year. So kudos to everyone who staff that organized that. It's a lot of work, but I think it pays off from a community perspective. Was there and there was a lot more entrance people who participated in the actual chili presentation this year than there were last year. Just wondering if there were more, is there a cutoff for when they can actually, I guess, put their names in to when they're going to be participating?
There is a cutoff for, you mean the people who are actually teams to
Yes,
sign up?
yes.
Correct. Yes, there is. And there were more teams that were signed up, and then there were a few people that dropped out also at the last minute.
Okay. Oh, okay, that's good. That's good. It's nice to hear. So, my other question on the irrigation pumps, was that a failure or was that just a maintenance?
No, that was a failure.
It was.
What happened is we have a couple other items which are check valves. So the system has to be pressurized. And what this was a sub pump basically that kept the pressure static in the lines. And so by having the air leak out, the system was leaking. And so then it caused that pump to cycle many times over the period of a duration, which caused excessive wear on that pump.
Okay, good. And my last question on the athletic field renovation, let's see that that's moving along. You guys are actually starting to work on I guess the proposal for the types of fields that will, whether it's going to be synthetic field or we're going to, look at some other, is that study progressing?
Yes. Yes, we've actually, we have already begun to take a look into that. And so we are moving forward with that study, yes.
So you actually have already started to put a proposal together, communicating with other people or what?
We're developing the scope right now, and then it will be put out to bid. So we've started working on it. It just, this month, we just started our new fiscal year, as you know. So that's this year's project that we'll be working towards in addition to the Mayfield field as well.
So do you have, I guess, kind of a timeline of, I know you've got to go out for bid and then there's a process.
Correct.
Just trying to get a feel for how much time are we talking about here?
Yeah, at this time, we don't have a timeline. We're still in development, but we can provide you that update when we have it.
Okay. But El Camino and there's one other field, I guess.
Staff was directed that the El Camino Park funding for the CIP will be utilized for the study. So that field will not be completed this year. It's the Mayfield field or the Stanford Palo Alto playing fields that we will still plan to renovate this
Okay.
year.
So those are on schedule.
Yeah, and we're looking at a start date in the new year, looking at spring, so after the rains.
All right. Thank you.
Commissioner Kleinhaus?
Thank you. A few questions about, let's see. Previous to the new staff, I've asked for a nature moment in the reports. So maybe you can reinstate that. It disappeared from your report. So find something to tell us about that's happening in the nature preserve that's nice and cool and wonderful. That's one comment. About the airport, it would be great if you can tell us, maybe not now if you don't know yet, but come back with what is the role of this commission in evaluating the alternatives that are proposed. How much parkland will the different alternatives take away from Palo Alto parks? Does that require a vote for undedicating parkland? How much of the parkland that will be lost is wetlands that need to be filled in the baylands? These are important things to this commission, and it would have been great if it came here before it goes to council. From what the airport public meeting had, they said they're going to directly to city council to select an alternative. and in September. That's what they said. And they have a survey online that would be good to advertise so people will know about it and respond. But it would be good if you can, once you maybe find out and come back and tell us a lot more about that project and what it means for the parkland. About the Ramos restrooms, the discussion initially, it was supposed to face East Meadow. And when the public gave comment on that, they asked for the doors to face the soccer fields or the fields so that the parents can see if their kid is going to the bathroom. Well, it ended up being neither one of those. It's facing the picnic grounds. So it's a little surprising, but I would support Jeff's comment that it needs shrubbery around it. And please ask whoever is doing that to put native shrubs like toyon and ceanothus and other things, and not those grasses, but actually put some nice native plants in the areas that are looking towards, or the back that faces the street. That would be nice. I think that's what I have for now. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, on the airport issues, I don't have enough information on that, but we have been reaching out to the persons who are working with the airport and all that. So I definitely will work in collaboration with them to research the information that you've basically inquired about. And so I will be able to respond to that at a later date. And then with the restrooms being in the right direction, I can take a look into that, see what happened there too. But I do hear your, comments on the native shrubbery where possible, and we'll definitely share that with the project managers over there.
I think it's a pretty sunny spot, which would lend itself well to the natives, which typically take more sun. And so it's good. I think that should work well.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner.
Great. Other questions?
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you so much, Steve and Sarah, for the report. I wanted to reiterate how much I appreciate the chili cook-off. That was a huge success. Some cities have events like that and it doesn't turn out well. So a big kudos to our city staff for making it safe, entertaining, networking for people to come out of their homes and enjoy, summer. My quick question or updates, I wanted to confirm if we have any updates for the upcoming community center.
Sorry, I didn't catch
So
that.
we have an
Anyone?
upcoming community center, right? So just asking if we have any updates.
Oh,
So we don't have any updates at this point.
Okay.
We do know that they're actively working on that,
Okay.
but we can come back with some more information at a later time for you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Yes, I just echo what everybody else is saying about the chili cook-off. It was a great time, and staff did a really, really good job, and I think the community had a really fun time. Steve, in your report, I saw something about the first tee, but I thought maybe we're going to do that in August.
Yes. So we're collaboratively working with George Moxie from the First Tee program.
Great.
And so we're in active discussions with him and look forward to bringing that up, in a future date.
Happy to see that going forward. And then when you do talk about the new recreation center downtown, it'd be interesting to know what rental spaces are going to be available for the community, for classes, for gatherings, for people. So if that could be included, that would be perfect. And Commissioner or Vice Chair Freeman asked all the questions about the field that I wanted to know and the field study, but I just wanted to make sure that when you do the scoping for the field, that it includes the cost of maintaining grass fields and the rest that grass fields needs and the water that they need as well, so that the study is pretty comprehensive. Thank you so much.
We'll
Appreciate
absolutely
it.
include those.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. I don't really have any questions, just, I didn't think anything could beat the restroom picks, but the playground boxed up, it lets a lot of anticipation. So I'm very excited to see that out of the box in a future photo maybe. And then just want to plug the Municipal Service Center open house. It's a lot more fun than the title sounds. So please go. There's a lot of things happening. It doesn't have the flashiest title. It's no chili kickoff, but there's a ton of things to do. So everyone should go. Any other comments or questions before we move on? Yeah, Commissioner Klein.
Can you clarify what was that about the community center? I missed the last meeting, so I'm not sure what this is about.
There's a new community center that's going to be coming online in the future. I just have heard little bits and pieces about it. I have seen it from the exterior. I can't remember the address offhand right now, but that's definitely in the works, I believe.
It is the area in the building downtown that used to be a like a gymnasium that La Comida is moving into. Yeah.
You're welcome.
Great. All right, moving on to business items. The first item is the pickleball lines at Fletcher Middle School. And if you have a public comment for this item, either on Zoom, please raise your hand or turn in a speaker card if you are here in person.
Any public comments?
We do have public comments. We'll do them after Adam's presentation.
Okay, great. Thank you. With that, I'd like to welcome Adam Howard, our Senior Community Services Manager, to present on the requested pickleball lines at Turman Park. Adam, take it away.
Good evening. Thank you very much. Adam Howard, Senior Community Services Manager with the City of Palo Alto. Oh, next slide, please. We're here to gather feedback and suggestions on the idea of adding pickleball striping of 8 pickleball courts at Turman Park. This request is coming from the Ellen Fletcher Middle School administration. Next slide, please. What you see in this slide is the spacing at this area. As you can see, Fletcher Middle School is adjacent to Turman Park. In this image, the Turman Park area is the area circled in orange, with Turman campus being immediately behind that. So Turman Park is city-owned property, which includes the grass fields, the dirt infield, the blacktop area, and the 2 tennis courts. So you'll hear the blacktop area referred to multiple times throughout this. I can't on the scroll, but you can see it's just below the tennis courts. There we go. That's the blacktop area that we will be referring to throughout this conversation. This space is often used by the Fletcher students during these school hours, and they are kind of the primary users of that blacktop area. Next slide, please. Leading up to this meeting, I've had some stakeholder engagement. It's included the Fletcher PTA, Fletcher administration, the PE department, and we mailed 140 postcards to resident addresses requesting either to provide feedback via email about this presentation or to attend tonight's meeting. You can kind of see in the image, the yellow area is the area that all the residents received this postcard. It's 140 because there's an area to the bottom left of that that is apartments. So many addresses within the single facility. Next slide, please. So the request that we have from the Fletcher Middle School administration with support from their PTA is to add 8 pickleball courts to the blacktop area, which would serve 32 students at a time. This request has no impact to the 2 tennis courts that are there on the site. Next slide, please. So a little background information for you. The current blacktop currently has striping for basketball, tennis, street hockey. Oops. It's okay. 4 square, as well as numbers that is used for the PE department. The fact that the school is one of the primary users is why there's so much striping. We wouldn't typically have that on a blacktop in a park, but given their primary use, it's used to make sure that we offer a lot for the students there. Currently, Fletcher PE department offers their pickleball program in the gym. They use temporary lines, but with that space requirement, there's not enough to accommodate all the students. And with that, the pickleball is only available during the PE time. So it's not readily available during recess or lunch or things of that nature, and only during kind of the window of time that PE is offering pickleball courts. Outdoor courts have already been added at Palo Alto and Gunn High School, as well as JLS and Green Middle School, as those are both areas that are operated by PAUSD. Next slide, please. In making these changes, the ideal usage for the space is that so Fletcher students can use that at all times, so clubs, recesses, at lunch. The PE department would be able to accommodate all of their students at one time with the 8 different courts. And also the City of Palo Alto's middle school athletics program, which is looking into adding pickleball as one of its offerings, would also use that space. All of those things are offered Monday through Friday, 8 to 5:30 when school is in session. Next slide, please. So as we previously discussed, the pickleball courts are available at Palo Alto and Gunn High Schools, JLS and Green. This has come from the PTA, who has expressed interest in making sure that the Fletcher students have the same experience as the other schools' students in the area. And ultimately, the school administration has made the request to accommodate their Fletcher programming needs. Next slide. This commission has discussed pickleball a lot here in Palo Alto, and I'm sure you've realized that Fletcher is not, or Turman, excuse me, Turman Park is not an area that we have previously discussed as to something that would host pickleball. And so the reason for that is the proximity to the neighbors. So this discussion is really about, can we provide these resources to the students without having an impact to the neighbors? Now, there are some things that we think will work towards that. One being that this is a blacktop surface, so it's not as smooth as a tennis court or a pickleball court would typically be. There will be abundance of lines, as we discussed. There's 4 or 5 different sets of lines out there. So although okay for kind of a entry level, someone wanting to play pickleball for the first time, or middle school introduction, it may not be ideal for someone that's really all that interested in hardcore pickleball. And there will be no pickleball equipment remaining on site. So currently in the evenings and afternoons, if someone drops by that park, just basketball hoops are available. And with this current idea, that it would remain that way. Next slide, please. If moving forward, this would be a joint project between the school district and the city of Palo Alto. The cost of this would be $8,900. So the city cost of that would be $4,450. Next slide, please. So really what we're here to do today is to obtain feedback and concerns and suggestions from the commission, from neighbors and other stakeholders. And with that, staff would go back and decide kind of next steps or future actions that we would take with regards to this request. So with that, next slide, I will open it up for questions and comments from the public.
Great, thank you. Let's begin with public comment. Do we have any public comment on this item?
Chair, we have 6 in-person speakers as well as 1 hand raised online. Our first speaker is Amy.
Thank you. And if you're in person and don't see your name on the list, please make sure you turn in a speaker card.
Amy, you have 3 minutes to speak.
Thank you. I'm Amy Lauterbach. I'm a resident of Palo Alto and currently the president of the Palo Alto Pickleball Club. Commissioners, thank you for the opportunity to speak on this topic. Our club is over the moon with excitement about the number of young people who have started playing pickleball. This summer, we're seeing an increasing number of young people coming to Mitchell Park and joining the community. They bring joy to the adults because they put a paddle down and join random people on the courts, so people of all ages are playing together. Adding lines at Fletcher will give those students an opportunity to learn and improve and become comfortable with pickleball so that they can come out to Mitchell Park and join the ever-expanding community of players who are there. I'd like to address the issue of pickleball noise. We very much appreciate the attention that's being paid to noise, and we don't want any neighbors to be concerned about having pickleball nearby. At the Fletcher site, there's 2 homes that are 200 feet from the courts, 2 more at 250 feet, and 2 more that are 300 feet. We believe this distance will be sufficient and that the noise of kids playing pickleball will not exceed the normal playground noise. If, however, the noise of pickleball does prove to be a problem in the future for the neighbors, there's a very easy solution. There are several models of quiet balls and quiet paddles. Some of the private tennis clubs have pickleball courts that are way too close to neighbors, sometimes less than 50 or 100 feet. The Menlo Park Circus Club is one of those facilities. They require all players at their club to use specific paddles that are quiet. At public courts where thousands of people are playing, this is not a viable alternative. However, the school could provide either quiet balls or quiet paddles. So if in the future there are neighbor complaints about the noise, which, as I said, we don't anticipate, there are easy solutions, and the club would be happy to explore those and potentially fund them if necessary. Thank you all commissioners for your service to the community. Appreciate the opportunity to speak.
Our next speaker is Jeannie. Jeannie, you have 3 minutes to speak.
Hi, I'm Ginny No, Fletcher alumni parent and former PTA president, and I'm speaking on behalf of the 65 parents, teachers, and students who signed this letter. Fletcher Middle School is unique within PAUSD as it is the only school on land owned by the city of Palo Alto. As a result, members of our Fletcher community have been working with the city to authorize painting pickleball courts at Fletcher, I think, for years now. Parents of Fletcher students have surveyed PAUSD campuses and found that every PAUSD middle school and high school has pickleball lines except Fletcher. This puts Fletcher at a disadvantage and does not offer the Fletcher students a fair and equitable experience relative to the other PAUSD middle schools like JLS and Green. And while this is a while this is a Parks and Rec meeting, not a school board meeting, it is a partnership, and the children affected by your actions here are both members of our community and PAUSD. And let's also not forget that the city runs middle school sports for PAUSD. There are so many benefits to playing pickleball, and especially at Fletcher. It will create equity across the PAUSD middle schools and our society in general. PE will have the option to teach pickleball outdoors. As Adam mentioned, pickleball is currently just taught in the gym with taped lines. Students can create a pickleball lunch club, meet after school or on a weekend. JLS had a pickleball lunch club this past year with over 50 members. It provides outlet for kids to exercise and is a positive distraction from screens. Fletcher will also be able to include all grades in the single pickleball season, all playing together. This will naturally create a stronger community for parents and children. Pickleball is very inclusive and approachable sport, meaning it doesn't take long for you to get good and have fun. You can have fun on day one, and you don't have to be super athletic to play. Pickleball can reach a demographic that many other sports don't include. It's extremely social, lots of laughter on the court, and 4 kids can play on one court, often only 14 feet apart. It's great for mental health and builds community. Please approve this action item in time for the inaugural middle school pickleball season. Thank you very much.
Our next speaker is Corey. Corey, you have 3 minutes to speak.
Hi, I'm Corey Levins, and I think I live in the house that's 200 feet away. So my first request would be that you not approve this. And I don't say that as a pickleball hitter. I play pickleball, I have a racket. I prefer tennis, but eventually when my knees go, I will be playing pickleball. The problem is that pickleball is a very loud, disruptive, some would say obnoxious sport. I think everybody here would probably agree with that description of it. And it really doesn't fit into this neighborhood. We're talking about a fairly small park where the sound travels as if it's across water. And there's really, and I know from people that play there now, they actually use the tennis courts and they bring their own nets, that it is a very loud noise. So my first choice is please don't do this. Now I've lived in Palo Alto a while. I've had 3 kids go through Nixon, Terman, Palo Alto. I've sat on some commissions or committees. So I think I kind of notice a fait accompli when I see one, and I'm kind of sensing that may be what's going on here. So I appreciate Amy mentioning Menlo Circus Club. I actually happen to play tennis with some members over there, and I'm very familiar with what happened there. And they were able to avoid some very confrontational disputes with their neighbors, some of whom were actually members of their club, by requiring what they call quiet paddles, sound reducing paddles, which apparently I'm told can reduce the sound by up to 50%. So I would hope that instead of looking into it if the neighbors complain, I would hope that from the very start, you require these paddles for use, require the school to provide those paddles for their kids, and kids who bring their own paddle should have to also use sound reducing paddles. The other thing that they did over at the other clubs is to install sound reducing materials. On the tennis courts at Terman currently have a mesh there. It's old, it probably needs to be replaced. The same kind of netting should be put on these courts that you're talking about. I think that would help a lot. And the third thing is, once it gets out that these lines are there, people are going to be bringing their own nets and playing, and it would be helpful if you could arrange for the Palo Alto police to make a visit every once in a while, instead of leaving the enforcement to the neighbors and putting us in potentially risky situations. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Christian. Christian, you have 3 minutes to speak.
All right. Just ready to start. Should I just talk? All right. Hello, my name is Christian Su. I live with my family in Palo Alto, and I am 17 years old and currently a rising senior in Palo Alto High School. When I was 14, I became the founding president of the PAPRC Pickleball Club, and I was stunned to see how much interest we had from the start, which resulted in not as crazy as JLS, but we got 21 new members signing up to learn and play a social sport with a very low barrier to entry. After that, I wrote to several companies and was able to find sponsors to send us high quality equipment such as Engage, Selkirk, and PaddleTech, which totaled up to 30 new paddles for our club. Every week, we would set up our portable nets on the painted lines on the outdoor basketball court and play countless games while still having fun. Even after some of them graduated, we still all managed to keep in touch with each other. I was thrilled to hear that one of my Pally alum club members started the pickleball club at University of Michigan, and another is helping pickleball thrive at Purdue University. It made me so happy that the love of the sport has such a lasting positive impact on people in terms of just in general, the love for the sport and the friendships that were made. And one of the best things about pickleball is that after a brief introduction, almost anyone can pick it up and just have fun and to socialize. Pickleball courts are also an efficient use of space. You can fit around 4 pickleball courts in 1 tennis court. And most games are played in doubles. So there's a lot more social and physical benefits of having 16 people play at a time on 1 tennis court instead of only having 4 people for doubles play on 1 court. However, there is still a competitive place for pickleball players to play and still get a workout. Personally, I am currently getting treatments for an autoimmune disorder. I've had several hospitalizations, have missed many weeks of school this past year. This has left me both socially and physically distant from my friends and my peers. But pickleball allows, well, a lot of that to just go away, all that awkwardness, because I can we can just pick it up and play with my friends. It's also extremely to note that each week I go to open play at Mitchell Park and I meet new people every time. This has had tremendous impact on my mental health. The middle school years are already awkward, but giving kids more space and opportunity to play a new sport while making new friends sounds like a win-win to me. Thank you so much.
Our next speaker is Grace. Grace, you have 3 minutes to speak.
Thank you very much. Greetings, commissioners. My name is Grace Ma. I am a 40-year resident here in Palo Alto. I raised 2 kids, 2 sons, one of them who went to Fletcher, had a wonderful experience there. I'm also 17 years on the Santa Clara County School Board. I'm also a former board member and president of Stevenson House, which is a senior housing project, which is right next door to the pickleball courts. And I am a pickleball aficionado. I occasionally teach the Getting Started class. For people who know nothing about pickleball, we provide paddles, we provide balls. I wear a neon vest and I tell them all the rules and, get them to come back. But I'm not speaking on behalf of any of those organizations. These are all my own personal views. And the items I want to talk about include the intergenerational benefits of pickleball, because at Stevenson House, which is our neighbor, we actually had the Palo Alto Pickleball Club invite the residents from Stevenson House, average age is 80. And we had about 20 residents come over, play pickleball, learn the simple stuff, nothing too tricky. And it was so enjoyable for everyone that certainly a lot of those seniors who have grandchildren in the area are, benefiting from the intergenerational aspect. I mean, as was said earlier, pickleball is very welcoming, 8-year-old to 80-year-old. Everybody is welcome and everybody plays. My second item is equity, which Ginny from the PTA talked about, and it is important to have equity among all the schools. As I said, my younger son went to Fletcher, wonderful school, but it is the smallest of the middle schools, and so, they kind of don't get as much because they just don't have as many students. So they don't have as many electives, they don't have as many, et cetera. But from an equity standpoint, the geography that's covered by Fletcher Middle School in, Los Altos part of PAUSD, also the students who, go to Nixon and those students in the Palo Alto Hills, they all, deserve and need to have equitable access. The last thing I want to mention was with respect to the courts being used after, kind of illegally after hours, spot check that Amy did on the JLS and Green courts, the striped that's already done, is that there aren't people using it after hours. I mean, first off, the courts are just on regular asphalt, so they're not great to play on. There also are not nets, so you have to be really enthusiastic to bring your own net, which not that many people are. That's why it's really, really crowded at the Mitchell Park lands. So
Thank you. Please wrap up your comments.
that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our last in-person speaker is Monica. Monica, you have 3 minutes to speak.
Good evening, Chair Brown and Commissioners. I'm Monica Williams, co-founder of the Palo Alto Pickleball Club and ambassador for the USA Pickleball Association. I'm here to add my support for pickleball striping on the blacktop at Fletcher School, and here's why. If you have a child who is not a natural athlete or too shy to learn a new sport, pickleball is a wonderful sport for them. It's easy to learn, and the culture focuses on inclusivity, having fun, and making friends. One of the reasons pickleball works well for young children is that you can get them on the pickleball courts without having to play a proper game, and it offers a number of health benefits too. It's a way for them to stay active, away from screen time, improve their coordination, balance, and agility without putting too much stress on their young bodies. So for the health and wellness that pickleball provides, every child should have the opportunity to learn to play pickleball, and what better place to learn than at school? Please give Fletcher students the same privilege as students at the other Palo Alto middle and high schools and paint pickleball lines on the blacktop. Thank you, Adam and staff and commissioners, for your understanding and compassion for the kids. Thank you very much.
Our next speaker is David. David, you have 3 minutes to speak.
Hi, thank you. My name is David Suh, and I am a parent of a Fletcher student as well as a homeowner in the yellow zone that you had marked on the map. So I'm located very close to Fletcher as well. I am in support of painting the lines for pickleball at Fletcher. I think it's a wonderful thing for the kids. I do empathize with Corey, and I do also request that we do the things required to mitigate and reduce the noise that may impact the rest of the neighborhood here. But other than that, I'm in full support, and that's it. Thank you for your time.
Our next speaker is Joan. Joan, you've been unmuted and you have 3 minutes to speak.
Okay, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Right. My name is Joan Deng. I'm a psychiatrist practicing at Stanford. As a mental health provider, I'm passionate about promoting activities that enhance the well-being of our youth. Today, I want to highlight the profound benefits of adding pickleball lines to the recreation course, supported by data-driven evidence on mental health benefits. Outdoor physical activities play a crucial role in the mental health and the well-being of our children. Research recently shows that the regular exercise can reduce symptoms of anxiety, depression, improve mood, and boost self-esteem. A meta-analysis study published in a prestigious medical journal, JAMA Pediatrics, found that physical activity interventions were associated with a statistically significant reduction in depressive symptoms among children and adolescents. Social activities, especially those involving physical exertion, foster a sense of community and belonging, which is crucial for the health development of our youth. A study published in the Journal of Adolescent Health reported that participation in team sports is associated with higher self-esteem, improved social skills, and reduction in feelings of loneliness and social anxiety among adolescents. Furthermore, these benefits extend to early adulthood. Another study published in the International Journal of Behavioral Nutrition and Physical Activity found that community sport participation not only improves children and adolescents' physical health in relation to such matters as the obesity crisis, but also enhances psychological and social health outcomes. In clinic setting, I tell my patients with depression If they are reluctant to take antidepressant medication or not able to tolerate a full dose due to side effects, I prescribe physical activity since it has evidence to support antidepressant effects. Pickleball is a unique sport that stands out for its accessibility and inclusivity. It is easy to learn, fun to play, and suitable for all ages and abilities. This makes it an ideal activity for youth. I strongly urge the Parks and Rec Commission to consider this request. Thank you for your consideration.
Chair, that completes public comment.
Great, thank you. And thank you to all our public speakers. Just to clarify before we go to the commission, this is a discussion item only, and so we are to provide feedback on the prospective striping that's being discussed tonight. Comments or questions from commission? Commissioner Oche?
Thank you, Chair. I just want to ask a clarifying question. I saw the fiscal impact details, but are you able to share like a breakdown of the potential costs with us? The joint, I saw a slide about it being a joint
Yeah,
project.
Trevor, can you bring that one back up? So it's $8,900 total. So the city's perspective of that would be $4,450.
Yeah, what I'm asking is, what would that entail? What's the breakdown of the cost? Is it just for the striping?
Right, that would
Oh.
be for a contractor to come in and add the striping for 8 pickleball courts.
Okay, so nothing to do with the surfacing itself, right? No.
So on that, if I may, so it has nothing to do with the surfacing. What it has to do with basically is the cost of the paint, cost of materials, time and labor to actually do the layouts, the design of it, and then actually to shoot the paint. You're welcome.
Vice Chair Freeman?
Yes. Yeah, Adam, thank you. Very good job on the very detailed presentation. And thank you, speakers, for your comments as well. You mentioned that there's 140 cards, I guess, postcards that went out to neighbors. Have you started to receive feedback from those? And how will that, I guess, influence the final decision on the project?
So that's just an additional way of gathering feedback. So far, the feedback we received is let me make sure I get the right number. 8 have been from pickleball supporters, encouraging that. And we had one resident with some clarifying questions, mostly concerned about sound, but they didn't voice they weren't against the idea, at least in the original emails, but that's all that we have received via email at this point.
I guess the other question is how, looking at, the fact that this will only be used during school hours, but that's nothing to prevent the public. I think it was mentioned that, someone could bring in a net and set it up and play pickleball, but supposedly the surface is not that conducive to pickleball. But how will this impact the neighboring communities, and what kind of measures is the city thinking about putting in place to kind of reduce any noise factors?
So I think, that's part of what tonight's discussion is really about. This is an open park. It remains an open park. So at this point, if someone really took the time to do that, they absolutely could, as they could in any park in Palo Alto. So that is there. And, really we're here to discuss what those thoughts are about mitigation and things of that nature.
Yeah. Okay. My last point is the fact is that the other schools do have a similar program, and this is definitely a way, there's really no reason why Fletcher should be left out of this wonderful sport that actually does add value. It gives kids an opportunity to get out there and who might not be gifted to play some of the other sports like basketball or running and so forth. And pickleball is a very easy sport to pick up, and the fact that someone who might be challenged doing PE could very easily take advantage of something like pickleball, and who knows, that might be the next Olympic champion 10 years from now. We don't know. So good job in the presentation, and I look forward to further discussion.
I just have a couple clarifying questions before we keep going. This process of splitting the cost of striping or any sort of infrastructure, that is our sort of standard process with this location. So we're following that same.
That has been the standard practice, yes.
And has it ever been discussed about, I know netting was mentioned, or even equipment? Is it typically the equipment, is the cost of that is taken on by the school, and then anything facilities, even like the netting sort of accessory structure, would still be the city?
That's the most likely scenario, yes. And they've definitely discussed the PE department will get their own equipment, and middle school athletics will get their own equipment.
Okay. And then you mentioned that it's already striped for, let's say, basketball, tennis, foursquare, street hockey. Maybe there's something else that I missed. Do we know how often that location is used for any of those uses, sort of off hours, or is it mainly school users during school hours?
It would be hard for me to answer for sure.
Okay.
All I can say is it typically looks like it's used mostly for basketball in the office in evenings and stuff, but we wouldn't have a firm answer for that.
That's fine. Yeah. Okay. Those are my just clarifying questions before moving on. And Commissioner Greenfield.
Thank you. I would suggest most of the after hours use of the park is on the playing fields for soccer practice and softball practice. Not so much on the courts. Following up on something that Commissioner Freeman or Vice Chair Freeman was talking about regarding off hours use of the pickleball courts. If somebody shows up with a net and is playing, and somebody shows up with a basketball and wants to shoot some hoops, how is that arbitrated? And is there any signage that would cover how that works out?
Not currently. Right now, there are no distinctions between activities on that multi-use space.
Just like there's no distinction between street hockey or basketball or foursquare on the space.
Correct. That's correct.
People figure it out.
Yeah.
Thank you. And so I think I heard from the chair's questioning that the cost of the equipment would be borne by the school district, the PE department, and for paddles and nets. And a question I have is, what is the cost difference between quiet paddles and balls versus noisy paddles and balls, or standard paddles and balls? That seems a real important distinction.
Yes, I don't have that information, but that's something we can look into for sure.
And I'm wondering if there's anybody with us this evening that might have input on that, if the chair would like to recognize them.
If there's anybody with knowledge on pickleball costing and equipment, you could provide that information. Yes.
Paddle that's called the owl paddle is $169, but hopefully they'll start becoming cheaper. Do you have anything more to say? And the balls are about, about $5 or something. Yeah.
There's a new model of ball called a library ball, which is library because libraries are quiet. That's a very inexpensive solution to supply them with library balls. Buying 30 paddles would be much more expensive than trying balls first.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's helpful. So Adam and Steve, I want to thank you for the presentation and the work and the effort that's gone into this. Thank you. That's helpful. I think I heard you say that when reviewing potential pickleball sites around the city, that Terman Park was not was excluded because of the proximity to residents. And so this is a site that the city wasn't considering as appropriate for pickleball. Is that correct?
That's correct, for many factors. Yeah.
So given that, I mean, I think there is a lot of great reasons to look to get pickleball courts put in here. One approach would be to wait and see if the noise is a problem, and if so, take some mitigation steps. It seems, given that the staff previously didn't, the question really is, does staff think there would be a problem here? And it sounds like staff previously said thought there might be a potential problem here.
Staff didn't see it as an ideal place to build a community court access like we have at Mitchell Park, where we have, permanent courts that are set up and really pushing the community to enjoy pickleball there. We don't see that. I mean, there's not enough parking. There's not public bathroom access. So this, we didn't identify as a community access point for pickleball.
But given this recommendation, it seems like, or given the situation, it seems like starting off with some form of mitigation might be the advisable approach. It sounds like the library balls are an inexpensive solution. It seems like that would be the least that we could do as far as a recommendation. That the quiet paddles would be more expensive, and that I don't know what experience people have in terms of, do you need the quiet paddles and the quiet balls, or how that works? But it seems like that would be a reasonable recommendation for staff moving forward.
We can definitely look into that.
Yeah, thank you. And just one other question, which is really off topic, but while we're talking about Terman Park, previously asked about the potential to consider renaming of Terman Park as Fletcher, so it would make this conversation a lot easier this evening, for example. Just look forward to information from staff on what the status is of that. Thank you.
We can look into that as well for you.
Thank you. Commissioner Kleinhaus?
Thank you. I have a few questions. Is there lighting now, or is lighting a consideration for the future?
No lighting, and at this point, there's been no discussion of that.
Can that be a condition of approval, that there'll not be lighting in the future as well? Say, okay, we're
Yeah, I mean,
you can do this.
Certainly would not. Maybe that's not the right. At this point, there's no thought of adding lighting to.
That's not my question. My question is, can you have a condition of approval that says that there'll be no lighting in the future?
It's our facility, right? So if we would be the ones installing lighting if, right? Am I
Right,
correct?
so
That the
that, yeah,
city-
that would need to be approved through this commission and the city council long before it could ever happen.
Even if they wanted, like, like to bring temporary lighting, any of that is not.
Correct. Any of
Okay,
that would need to go
thank
through
you.
this commission and the city council.
Second question is, there's no fencing around there, or is there around the courts right now?
There's fencing around the blacktop, but there's an entryway. There's multiple entryways to the fencing.
So there can't be any errand balls colliding with people playing soccer next on the field right there next
It would
door?
take a very errant hit. So
I
there's
don't know the place
yeah.
well
So there's
enough.
what would you get? 12-foot tall fencing around the complex? 16, maybe even.
Yeah, it would be very, very rare for something like that to happen.
Okay.
Not to say it couldn't happen, but it'd be very rare.
More likely to have a soccer ball going onto the court.
Right.
Okay, I'm just trying to kind of get a better picture of the place. In terms of right now they're playing in the gym. How many courts do they have in the gym? And will this add more courts or replace the courts in the gym?
So they didn't give me an exact count of how many temporary ones they set up in the gym, just that it wasn't enough to serve all the students. And I think their goal is to not do it in the gym anymore and be outside.
Okay. Well, so I guess the next question is about bathrooms, and since you mentioned, no, there's no bathrooms, we didn't want to put bathrooms. Is that something that is gonna be required in the future, or is this also gonna have to come here? Although, once you increase use, you usually need bathrooms.
So any conversation around adding a public bathroom to that site would need to go through city process, which includes us and city council.
Okay. I think in terms of the noise, there is a couple of questions I have. One is that I would just encourage you to require all the noise alleviating things ahead, not wait until people complain. Because there is no, the speaker, Mr. Levin said that, shall we call the police if they're playing after hours? You can't, it's a park, they have the right to do so. So we need to make sure that every noise, whether it's quiet nets, library balls, the paddles need to be quiet, all of the above. Need to be ahead of time. And one other question, I know the fields are used too, but is there space to increase the density of shrubs and trees to create more of a buffer between the homes and the fields?
I wouldn't say so at that location. I think that's pretty well densely planted at this time. Trees surround pretty much the perimeter of the area. And the field use basically is primarily, as Commissioner Greenfield had said, for athletics, meaning softball and soccer and other events like that. This is kind of offset onto the hardscape areas, which is kind of separating it out.
Is it possible to add trees along the fence outside the paved area, between the paved area and the fields?
We would have to take a look at the spacing that's available at that time to make sure that it's going to be sustainable.
But that could have many benefits.
Yeah, there's certain even shrubs, that grow tall that, as we've seen over at other of our, parks that we have. So we can take a look into that.
Sometimes you can plant shrubs between the trees that will create more of a buffer. I don't know if there are any studies that show the difference in number of courts. They asked for 8. Looks good, but would 6 make a big difference in the amount of noise?
I would say that we don't have any specific numbers on that.
Can you look into that? Maybe there is some kind of a curve on how much noise related to how many courts or something.
I could see if I can find any information on that.
Okay. It's a nimble sport, pickleball. And it's much better to use hardscape that's already there than to try and create new hardscape anywhere in the park. So overall, this should be a good project. But since Fletcher was not looked at the place for pickleball earlier because of concern for the neighbors, I think we need to use every method possible to reduce the level of noise there. And that could be considered shrubbery or trees in between existing trees or right next to them. It should include all the methods possible for the actual equipment and the surface potentially. I don't know if there is anything that is quieter. And potentially look at the numbers of courts if it makes a difference. I don't know. Thank you. I think that's what I had for now.
Vice Chair Freeman?
Yeah, I just have one on basically the pickleball courts are primarily going to be used for school play. And there's already, do you know, do the students actually use that area currently? I guess for basketball or other PE?
Yeah, so my understanding is especially recess and lunch, there's a lot of basketball activity that goes on there. And then it's, PE department uses all those striped lines, which is ultimately why they've been put down.
We're probably saying that, maybe no one really knows till it happens, but right now it's primarily going to be used as an overflow for pickleball for the students at Fletcher. And maybe it might be used for someone who happens to have a portable net that wants to play, but we don't know that until it actually takes place. So I think for right now, we're talking primarily it's going to be used for the pickleball program for the school. And that's only during school sessions. So that's just my point.
Yeah, thank you very much. I don't think there's any disagreement about the importance and the validity and the opportunities for kids playing pickleball and people's mental health and all of that. So I think we all agree. And I think the opportunity to have 8 more courts is great at the school district. I was over there today kind of looking around at the asphalt and all the lines. And if I were a kid, it would be hard to figure out which sport I was playing because there are lots of lines on that asphalt, but they're really good at that. At any rate, I'm interested in not what happens during this school day, but what happens after school and what happens on the weekends when we have 8 new pickleball courts available with temporary nets and all of that. And so I noticed some signage over there, Adam. There's a lot of signage about this area and these courts. The asphalt is to be used only during school hours. Is that for only for school kids during those hours, right?
I think the current signage says to be there during school hours, you would need to check in with the office.
Okay. So I'm more concerned about what happens after school and on the weekends. And I wonder if this isn't an opportunity for pickleball to do a little bit of research and cost analysis of what it would be like if we just said on the weekends and at night, those who are playing pickleball have to use the pickleball paddles that don't make too much sound and the balls as well. Or maybe if we started out using that for the school opportunities and the middle school athletics as well, because I think it's going to be a good test course. And I think that now that pickleball is getting to be so popular, and now that we have an opportunity for the new technology, it'd be kind of cool to find it out, that it would be something that we could do. Obviously, it would cost money, and it'd be good to know how much money it's going to cost for both the kids in the programs and also for off-school hours, although that may bring more people to the tournament courts than the neighbors would like. But I'm concerned about the neighbors listening to pickleball all the time, So if you could find out a little bit of that information, that would be great. And then some data about what other uses there are on that blacktop during the non-school hours, like basketball and other tennis. I know tennis isn't on the blacktop.
So yeah, I think the equipment costs, we can definitely look into, get firm costs associated with that. I think that the middle school athletics program, we can do that. And I think the school is on, I shouldn't speak for them. I think they would want to be supportive of that. So they would look into doing that equipment as well. Mandating that for community members that stop in, that's a difficult situation. I don't know how we would do that. And we certainly can try to spot check at least as to what's going out there. As we know with spot checking, there's just no firm answer because you're only out there so much and see what's out there and see who's out there and see what's being used. So I think it'd be hard to give any kind of concrete information as to exactly how those courts get used during off hours.
Okay. Well, I'm definitely in support of having 8 new pickleball courts for kids at the school. And I'm also interested in if this is an opportunity for us to do something that would mitigate the sound.
So we're looking for feedback from the commission. So here's my feedback, is that I think we're talking about it like it's a park and like we're adding pickleball courts, but it's really trying to add a program for a middle school that doesn't have a program that other middle schools and other schools in the city do have. We are not trying to make this a pickleball destination, and having seen the site and the asphalt and all the lines, I don't think it's going to be a destination for pickleball users. We have a world-class facility in the city that is well loved and used. And I'm hesitant to put too much red tape and restrictions and requirements on this, because it's sort of taking away the spirit of making this accessible for everyone. I would be in support of recommending quiet materials, whether that's balls or balls and paddles, seeing what the appetite is for that. If it is an issue, and I think rather than waiting for it to be an issue on off hours, we can just ask the middle school, like, is the noise an issue? Are you getting complaints from parents or from neighbors? Do you think it's significantly louder than other activities? Then we can begin to explore other options such as signage. Please keep it down. You live in a neighborhood, but schools are by nature in neighborhoods for convenience and to serve the neighborhood around them. So that is a little bit what you sign up for when you live near a school, but we also want to be good neighbors. I think I don't know if the netting actually reduces noise, but that's something that could be explored later down the road if it does become an issue, and catch that early on. And then I'd think we'd go to bigger things like any sort of shrubbery or bigger facility structure. I sort of would lean towards the more low cost alternatives. I'd also caution against requiring too many spot checks of staff or the police department. I think our community volunteers are out, and we can really rely on the word of mouth to staff rather than asking staff or police officers to go out and regularly patrol the area, but just making sure that there's clear lines of communication with the neighbors so they know who to call if it is an issue. So those are my feedback. I'm very much in support of it, but I do agree with just seeing what the appetite is. I know that they said, I believe in the staff report, if they couldn't get the painted lines, they would just do other temporary solutions outside.
I think that was what the middle school athletics program was looking at.
Okay.
Like, if we don't, then that's what we would try to do. That program specifically is only 2 months, so it's very short. It wouldn't, but we still don't know if that would work necessarily, but we would just look into making sure.
Okay. Yeah, I think the painting seems like a good solution, but I am in favor of putting some low cost mitigations and floating out to see what the appetite with our school partners is. Commissioner Greenfield?
I have a follow-up question. Is middle school athletics program likely to share equipment with the PE department of the middle school?
We typically don't. It's just somewhat easier to keep our equipment separate. We store it in different places. But we have a great partnership, but we typically get our own equipment.
Thanks. That's helpful to understand. And I'm leave it to staff to sort out, but it would encourage you to consider adding a simple rule that for after hour, for any pickleball plan, that to use the library balls if you determine that that is an effective solution. It seems like anyone who's coming in to play pickleball on the courts that's going to the trouble of bringing a net to be able to bring in a specific ball is probably something they could handle pretty easily. Requiring the quiet paddles would be more of a push. But it seems like could get pretty easy to get community support for using the quiet balls at the site. So it's something to consider. Thank you.
Great. Any other comments?
Yeah, I had just a quick question about the painting on the asphalt. When and if the pickleball lines are painted, will you paint the rest of the lines as well?
No, currently the blacktop and lines were resurfaced over spring break. So that stuff is new.
Okay. Yeah, they look pretty bright. So just wonder. Thank you.
Anything else? Do you have what you need from us?
Yes, thank you.
Great. All right. Well, thank you for the presentation. Thank you to the public commenters. We'll be moving on to the next item, which is the Foothills and Pearson Arrastradero Nature Preserve update.
All right, with that, I'd like to welcome our Michael Warner, who is our supervising park ranger over at Foothills and Arrastradero Preserves. Mike, take it away.
All right. Thank you, Steve. Good evening, commissioners. Michael Warner, supervising park ranger, Foothills and Arrastradero's Nature Preserves and Esther Clark Park. I'll be presenting an update for Foothills and Arrastradero Nature Preserves this evening. Next slide, please. We'll start off with the visitation numbers for Foothills Nature Preserve. In 2023, we had 158,507 visitors to the preserve. This is in alignment with, almost back in alignment with pre-COVID times. In 2019, we had 156,250. The rolling average for the 5 years before between 2015 and 2019 were 143,725. For reference, Foothills Nature Preserve opened to the general public in December 17th, 2020. Staff began charging vehicle entry fee on February 27th, 2021. And we began charging vehicle entry fees every day of the week in January 23rd of 2023. In 2023, we had approximately 83,711 vehicles enter the preserve. This is a decrease from 107,473 vehicles in 2022. Of those entries, we had approximately 38,566 entries that were paid on the day of visit. We also sold about 3,104 annual passes. In 2022 and 2023, we had no preserve closures due to vehicle parking constraints, which I know has been a sore spot for many people. In 2021, we had several days of closure. The last preserve closure was April 2021. For 2023, the vehicle entry fees generated $231,492 for the Foothills and Arastadero preserves. Go to the next slide. For the Rangers in 2023, we responded on 61 calls for service, which is a 40% increase from the previous year. Rangers responded to 36 calls in 2022. These calls include things like traffic accidents on Page Mill Road, medical emergencies both in and outside of the preserve, search and rescue calls, and also violations reported to dispatch. So if there's an incident that occurs and they request a ranger to respond. Next slide, please. Enforcement of the preserve regulations in 2023, there was, for reference, the open space rangers issue administrative citations, which comes out of, the authority comes out of 53069.4 of the California Government Code. There was 29 citations issued in 2023. It is one citation more than in 2022, which equates to about a 4% increase. Citations were issued majority for seasonal trail closure, followed by dogs off leash within the preserves, and then followed by bicycles on trails that are signed no bicycle. We also had some for after hours use, reckless driving, and then one incident of collecting firewood or use of power tools within the preserve. Rangers also issued 226 written warnings. This is statistically less than 23% less than 2022, which was 290 warnings. The philosophy that I've maintained as the supervising ranger is to have my staff getting out and being present in the preserves. We're all anecdotally seeing this, and we're now starting to see this in statistics, that we are seeing better compliance with the preserve regulations now that staff are out there and being seen. And so it's been great to see that. Go to the next slide. As far as staffing goes, currently, not including myself, we have 3 full-time rangers based out of Foothills. We have 2 assistant rangers, which work approximately 2 to 3 shifts a week. They are 960-hour employees, so they're not full-time employees. We also have 3 open space technicians that also do the same. They work about 2 to 3 shifts a week. The ranger staff currently, at least during the summertime, it's we cover from 7 a.m. until 10 p.m. at night, so we have to split our shifts across the day. So generally that equates to about 2 to 3 staff members on at any given time. This year, a couple of the highlights are we brought on 2 new assistant rangers. The positions were vacant for about 4 or 5 months. This included about 250 hours of training in medical, search and rescue, wildland fire, policy guidelines, maintenance practices, heavy equipment operation. Rangers currently, some of the pictures that are highlighting in the slideshow, we've been working with Palo Alto Fire Department. They are offered swiftwater operations class for staff, and they've opened it up to the Rangers because we do share a lot of concurrent jurisdiction with them, with some of the creeks and waterways adjacent to the preserves, and then also Baronda Lake. The class is mostly geared towards a flood response in Palo Alto, as the Rangers and the fire department responded in 1997 to floods in eastern Palo Alto. Additionally, we've had we hosted a 8-hour search and rescue awareness class for Ranger staff. We also had staff from Mid-Peninsula Open Space, City of San Jose, and Santa Clara County Search and Rescue and San Mateo County Search and Rescue who attended that training. And then the final picture on the right-hand side is one of our staff members attended a large animal rescue class. Our preserves, especially Pearson or Astrodero Preserve, adjoins a number of equestrian facilities. So that's something that we haven't had to respond to recently, but it's something we should train for because those events are very unique when they do occur. We are currently, for trainings that are up and coming, we also have staff going to emergency vehicle operations, and then we also have folks that are working on their EMT, and then they're also their Class A driver's license, which is a part of the job. We are also hiring 2 open space technicians currently. So we're hoping to have those positions filled by next month. Next slide, please. Some of the work that we completed in 2023, we completed 5 acres of shaded fuel break along the backside of residences and on Alexis Drive and Bandera Drive, which is adjacent to the Foothills Nature Preserve. This work was originally outlined about as far back as 2009 in the Foothills Fire Management Plan. It was not completed up until recently just due to cost constraints and then labor constraints. Starting in 2022, Palo Alto Fire Department, along with CAL FIRE and us, have started working collaboratively to address some of these wider fuel break areas that need attention. They worked on Page Mill Road last year, expanding the fire fuel break along Page Mill Road between Foothills Gate 1 and Foothills Gate 4, which is about 2.5 mile fuel break. That was in 2022. In 2023, they completed this section behind Alexis and Bandera Drives. The work took about 7 weeks, and it was about 3 hand crews that worked this area. So it was the Pacheco crew out of Santa Clara County, and then also 2 California National Guard crews. So about a total of 50 to 60 personnel that worked on this area, including our staff also assisted with brush clearing and also identifying nesting habit, things like that. So one of, to get ahead of a question, we do surveys before us. We have strict best management practices that are outlined in the plan, including surveying for nests of animals and things like that, habitat or plants that are special species. The CAL FIRE captains are also trained in that training, so rangers and the CAL FIRE captains will also work together to identify those issues and then work around them. And basically, like if we find an example, wood rat's nest, we'll set an appropriate boundary based on the biologist's recommendations to work around. So we're not just going in and clear cutting area, it's very scientific in how the work is done. Next slide. Some other work that we did with other departments within the preserve is the pictures on the uppermost is 8-inch gas line that became eroded in the winters of 2022, 2023. During that winter, we had about 46 inches of rain that fell in the foothills. The average is about 20. So it was about double what we normally have. Amongst many of the other infrastructure issues that we had, in the foothills. This was particularly within the Pearson Arastadero Preserve. This 8-inch gas line became exposed as natural gas, which required collaboration between ourselves, the Utilities Department, Cal Fish and Wildlife, the Regional Water Board, all coming together to formulate a plan and then basically restore the creek bed in that area. So the picture on the right-hand side there is the work completed to help dissipate the pressure on the gas line and then restore the creek bed back to a more natural state.
I'm sorry, Mike, where is that located?
That is within the Pearson Arastadero Preserve. Also within both the Pearson Arastadero Preserve and the Foothills Nature Preserve, work continued on the electrical undergrounding. Within the Arastadero Preserve, that picture on the left-hand side, all of the above ground power lines have been removed within Pearson Arastadero. And work still is continuing within Foothills. We have about 1,300 feet, I think, of work that is remaining within Foothills. And utility crews are still assessing how to do that last 1,300 feet. And I'm sure it'll be, I'm not one to speak more specifically to those plans, but they could provide probably more details if you have questions on that. Next slide. Some of the maintenance work that occurred within Foothills Nature Preserve over the last year. As stated, we had 46 inches of rain that fell in the winter of 2022-2023. This led to about 6 or 7 weeks of work to clear drainage ditches, culverts, sediment basins. We have about 65 culverts, sediment basins, clean outs, things that we have to do to prep both preserves for winter. So that takes up a significant amount of staff time. Additionally, the next picture you see is our springtime mowing. So following all that rain, we have a lot of grass that grows up, and we have about 25 miles of roads and trails within Pearson Arastadero and Foothills Nature Preserves. And we also have it equates out to about 429 acres of land that has to be mowed or disked to install fire protection lines. We also do a significant amount of mowing for yellow star thistle reduction and Medusa head reduction within the Pearson Arastadero Preserve. And so that in total takes about 10 weeks as well. And last year was a special challenge because of how much rain that we received. The ground stayed saturated for a long period of time. And so we weren't able to do it in just one pass. We had to go back multiple times and redo the same mowing. Next picture on the right is the Sunfish Island Bridge. Work was completed with, we had a contractor and then along with staff help to complete the work on the bridge. Took about 4 weeks. This is one item that's been slated for repair for quite a while. The decking was getting pretty rotted. The work looks amazing. Staff did an amazing job. Contractors did an amazing job. Received a lot of positive feedback from the public who enjoy it. Yeah, I think it's one of my favorite spots in the park. That bridge is very beautiful. Lower left, so we have 25 miles of trail that we maintain. Part of the trail maintenance this year was to work on establishing a trail bed across the irrigated turf, because we've had several complaints from folks in the public about trip hazards on the lawn, basically gopher holes. There's utility boxes out on the lawn that you can't see readily. And then also during the winter time and spring, a lot of people complain about their shoes getting wet just hiking from the interpretive center to the start of the trail. If you've ever hiked 7.5 miles with wet shoes, it's not that enjoyable. So that's part of the reason, because of those reasons, and then also in alignment with our trail maintenance plan to provide clear passage and safe routes throughout the park. We updated that and completed the work in about 2 days. We also work on fire fuel reduction and then also fire road or evacuation route clearance throughout the park. So that picture in the middle on the bottom is part of the work that took place over about 3 or 4 weeks. of clearing vegetation adjacent to roads to make it safe for folks to either evacuate through the park or out of the park in the event of a fire, but also provide open clearance for fire vehicles. And the last photo is we've been working on updating the signage within the Foothills Nature Preserve, including the trail wayfinding posts. We installed the initial 13 posts along Los Trancos Trail, and then we've just gone through and installed about another 14 posts on all the other trail junctions this last month. This work is done in collaboration with Scouts as part of their Eagle Scout projects. The signs came out great. We've also, once again, got a lot of positive feedback from the public. And the signs haven't been updated, at least the wayfinding, trail wayfinding signs hadn't been updated in about 20 years within Foothills. Next slide. Arastradero, some of the quick maintenance projects that we've had there, we have finally linked in alignment with our trail maintenance plan for the Arastradero Preserve, we finally linked the northern and southern portions of the preserve with an all-weather route so that folks can hike from one end of the preserve to the other without having to encounter seasonal trail closure. This work was completed in the course of about 3 to 4 weeks, and it was essentially taking like material that we have in the preserve, which is quarry fines, compacting that into the soil to establish a durable trail bed. And this will also facilitate with first response within the preserve. So if we have any medical issues or things like that within the preserve in the wintertime, that the fire department and staff can get through with UTVs or utility terrain vehicles to access injured park visitors. Additionally, we've been working on structures within the preserve. So fixing, repairing gates, signs, fences. We're hoping for this next year to work on the trail wayfinding posts within Rastradero, which also need an overhaul. And then the final picture on the right-hand side is part of our environmental restoration work. So this is a San Jose Conservation Corps member who is utilizing a mower to mow Medusa head. So in the Rastradero Preserve, we try to strategically target yellow star thistle, Medusa head, teasel, and purple star thistle populations and try to reduce them so we can improve the habitat for the wildlife and also the experience for visitors, because a lot of those are not very fun for the visitors out there as well. And then also part of that work is we also go through and we try to mitigate a lot of the social trails. So as people wander off trail, we try to go back and repair those sites. So that's kind of the major things that we've been working on completing within Arastradero. Next slide. Winter in October 2023 through March 2024 is the most recent winter. I know Commissioner Greenfield had some questions last year about specifically how many trees and days of seasonal trail closures. So we had 32 trees cleared by staff this year between October 2023 and March 2024. We also had 25.66 inches of rain and 104 days of seasonal trail closures. We also had 3 days of total closures of the preserve due to storm conditions. So those were generally days where we had winds over 50 miles an hour and then saturated soils. So in alignment with our other regional partners like San Mateo County, Santa Clara County, and Mid-Peninsula Regional Open Space District, we closed our preserves to prevent folks from going out there possibly getting injured. Some of the pictures you see there is just detail some of the rangers' responses. So trees down on Page Mill or on the trails, responding to down power line calls. The only major damage that we took within the preserve was you can see the pavement cracking and uplifting near Vista Hill, which was recently repaired. And then also we lost our kiosk at the lake that we're working on replacing and with a new one. So that's the only major notable events from this winter. Next slide. As in last winter, so last year we had several inches of snow. I think I presented in my slideshow last year some pictures of that. This year we also had some snow, but not to the same level. And it was only over a couple of days versus the better part of a week and a half. But there's a picture of the snow, and that's becoming a more common. It appears to us, at least staff that's on duty, that this is becoming more of a recent phenomenon where we're starting to see multiple years of this in a row, where it used to be just a one-off situation every 5 to 10 years. Now this is something that we're starting to have to plan for every winter. Next slide. So before I end my slideshow, as mentioned, I know that some folks wanted some nature notes, so I did throw in some pictures that staff had taken of wildlife throughout the preserve. You may notice on the far left of your screen, we have a red-shouldered hawk, and these are all at Foothills Nature Preserve. So we have red-shouldered hawk at Foothills Nature Preserve. Red-shouldered hawks can be some of the noisiest raptors. You often hear them crying out. It can be heard for miles. What's interesting about this photo is you have the red-shouldered hawk here, but then you also have the Stellar jay on the lower right-hand corner. Stellar jays and some blue jays also like to imitate red-tailed hawks so they can scare off potential predators or competition. So those two birds also have a lot in common, or one imitates the other sometimes. As far as we have in the lower bottom, I mean, those are kind of a little jumbled, but sorry about this, but the lower left, we have the black-tailed Columbian deer. They typically shed their antlers between January and March, but they grow them back between April and August. So this one has a very healthy set of antlers that it's working on. And we also have in the upper right, coyote. Coyotes, if you didn't know this already, they are actually monogamous and mate for life. They usually mate between January and March. And after a gestation period of about 60 days, which usually puts it out around May, June, they can give birth to a litter of between 1 to 19 pups. And there's some research that coyotes are actually able to, based on the pressure that's placed on the populations of coyotes, they can adjust their litter amount. So if there's high pressure and not a lot of coyotes in the area, they will have lots of lots of pups, where versus if there's not a lot of pressure on them and there's a lot of coyotes, adult coyotes in the area, they'll have smaller amounts. Last year we had 5 coyote pups that were born within the park that we would see playing in the evenings. This year we have 3 that are actually active right now. So they're a lot of fun. If you're ever up there in the evenings, you might get a chance to spot them about. And not to leave out our feathery turkey friends, the turkeys actually have some of the best eyesight. They have much better than 20/20 vision. They can see in color and also within 270-degree field of view. This makes it complements their very wary nature and gives them an edge on both predators and hunters. So that's some of our wildlife friends and what they've been up to up in Foothills. Next slide. And that's the conclusion of the presentation, if you have any questions.
Thank you so much for the wonderful presentation. We'll first begin with public comment if we have anybody on Zoom that would like to speak on this item.
I'm seeing no hands raised online or in person.
Great. We'll close public comment and bring it back to the commission for questions and comments. Begin with Commissioner Cribbs.
Yes, first of all, that was really a wonderful presentation. Thank you very much. The pictures are great, and it's really terrific to hear what's going on now. One of the last times we all talked, we talked about the open positions that you were all trying to fill. Are those pretty much all filled now, or are there other ones? And do you feel like you have enough staff?
Well,
three different
questions. Well, as far as staffing, we could definitely use more full-time staff. It's right now our 2 assistant rangers and our 3 current open space technicians, and we have 2 vacancies within the open space technicians, so we have 5 total positions. Those are 960-hour positions. So generally how the park was run previously, I would say if we rewound the clock about 20 years ago, they would have been brought on in around March, April, and then worked the season and then left in October. Now we're starting to see visitation is pretty much plateaued, and we're just busy throughout the year with maybe a small dip in December, January. And with the front entrance station at Foothills, we need a minimum staffing of 3 to 4 people on the weekends. So we end up in this role of where we're stretching our 960-hour employees throughout the whole year. And so those positions, you know, most of the year they're working only 2 days a week. And one of those days is a weekend day. And then during the summer, we can bump it up to 3 days a week, but then, you know, we're very limited on that window. So usually it's between June and October, or mid-May to October. So, yeah, it's, as far as the positions that were open previously, the open space technician position is folks start off in that role and then either promote up. So 2 of our assistant rangers came from the open space technician role. We also have a lot of the open space technicians are also in the West Valley Park Management Program. And so they're going through that program. And as they come out of that, then, you know, they're also looking for full-time positions. And so we end up losing folks to other full-time positions. So it's kind of just a constant, we're in recruitment, we fill the positions, people stay a while and then they move on, and then we get new recruitment. So it's the 2 positions that we're recruiting for right now have only been open since, one's been open since January. The other one just opened, I want to say in May. So, and then we kind of piggybacked it on the recruitment that we had going since January. So we're hoping to fill those positions shortly, and then hopefully we can hold on to them, but we never know.
Thank you. And then was it the Conservation Corps that were doing, how many people do you have from that source?
So San Jose Conservation Corps is a contract. So it's generally we'll contract with them for some work. They'll come out. It can be anywhere from like a day to a rolling contract over a course of a week or 2. Same with like CAL FIRE. It's a free service that the state is providing currently for municipalities, and those staff are primarily beholden to CAL FIRE in the state, but then as you know, training opportunities arise or whatever, that's where they're putting them. So how they look at it is it's training for them to come in and do fire fuel reduction work in city-owned areas or local municipalities or special districts.
Okay, thank you very much. And I like the signs too.
Yeah, thanks.
Vice Chair Freeman?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, great, great presentation. I think it was out at Foothill maybe 3 or 4 months ago. So nice to see a few pictures that especially the bridge that I recognize. I do have, so the park was open, Foothill was open on 2022 to the public, is that right?
It opened December 17th, 2020, I think.
Okay, so
for Foothills.
There was 20, I look at one chart, looked like 2022 was an uptick in
actually,
visitors.
Javad, could you bring up the second slide?
Yeah, and then it looked like it took a dip in 2023, but that have been because of the rainstorms and so forth that we had that year, but it has 2024 look like it's going to be ticking up to the same level as 2022 or what?
We're back about where we were pre-COVID. In 2019 we had 156,000 and now we're at 158,000. The entry fee in some regards I think is also leveled out visitation to help level out. I mean, we also have post-COVID, people are doing different things now. But I mean, I think we're always going to be higher than we were going into it with visitation. But I think now it's it's going to be a much gentler gain.
Yeah, so 2023 looks like it's leveled out to where you were, I guess, pre-COVID. But so the other side, the other question to that would be, have you seen a sort of an increase in the number, the rentals of camp space and that type of thing? Or-
Yes, I mean, well, I can't speak personally because I've only been at the preserve since January of 2022. In my experience, the campground is reserved usually every weekend, is full reservations. Weekdays are a little hit or miss, but generally every weekend we have a full campground.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
So I can't speak before my time, but that's what it's like now.
And I don't want to hog the questions here, but it was nice to see the wildlife pictures there. But have you, I guess, observed any changes in wildlife over the course of the last 3 or 4 years? And I guess that can kind of show what the health of the ecosystem is.
I personally haven't observed any wildlife changes. I have to say Foothills is, out of all the places I've worked in Mendocino County, worked in Marin County, been a ranger for 13, 14 years. I have to say Foothills is probably the most wildlife rich preserve that I've ever worked in. It's the only place that you can go for me, it feels like the only place you can go for an hour hike and you can see all sorts of animals everywhere. And it's just, you just have to slow down and listen and observe. And there's animals and birds everywhere within that preserve. So it's jam packed. I think I haven't noticed a specific difference, but maybe I'm not the right person to talk about pre-opening.
That's good. Thank you. Thanks for the presentation.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Commissioner Kleinhaus?
I have a lot of questions. So I'm going to start with Foothills and Commissioner Greenfield, if you feel like interrupting and like joining into a question, feel free. One question is to do with the citations and warnings for, and you mentioned trail closure and you mentioned other types of citations and written warnings. Can you break that down a little bit on bikes versus pedestrians and what kinds of bikes?
Okay, can you bring up that slide, please? So for seasonal trail closure, to my knowledge, I think all the seasonal trail closure citations were for pedestrians that were on seasonal trail closures within the Arastadero Preserve. That's the only preserve that has seasonal trail closures. As far as the bicycles on trail, I do not have the statistics on what type of bike they are. I just know that they were bikes. I know for the after hours use, for one of the after hours use was actually kind of a rare incident in my career that I've never seen, but it was a person on a one-wheel after hours in the preserve on a trail. So it was kind of multiple issues all at once. It was impressive. And then as far as the other after hours citation was actually for a vehicle that entered while staff were conducting a search and rescue for a missing person, and then decided to go on a little bit of a joyride. And then the vehicle speeding and reckless driving, I'm not 100% sure on. I can't speak to those. Those weren't my issues. The power tools and collecting firewood was someone who had stopped along Arastadero Road and entered the preserve with a chainsaw and was using it to cut vegetation and collect firewood. And as far as the written warnings go, I can elaborate a little bit more on those. I don't have the exact statistics. I would say majority of them, just from looking, I looked at the statistics, majority of them are for after hours or dogs off leash in the preserve. But I have to say overall, it's been staff's experience. And then also just now looking at the numbers, we're down about 23%, is that it's not from a lack of having staff out there. We're just not seeing the same amount of violations that we were previously. So that means folks are, I think, having a positive interaction with staff. Staff are out there, they're seeing staff, and they're voluntarily following the rules now, which is great. That's exactly what we want is folks to get along and follow the rules. Yeah, that's kind of all I can
Okay.
really speak to that
Thank
slide.
you.
Yeah.
My next question is about best practices. You mentioned that before you do vegetation management, you have people go look for bird nests, other types of rare plants and so on. Do you find any?
So with that particular project, there was a couple wood rats nests. I think the minimum requirement is 30 feet. I think we went 50 feet around nests to avoid disturbance. That was the only thing that were noted. I think the only other nesting, because it was done after bird nesting season, so it was in beginning of August when that work started. It was the only other nests that were found were hornets' nests, unfortunately. So that was about the extent of what we were able to document and find. And we do watch, most of that area was very heavily infested with poison oak, coyote brush, and escaped decorative plants like ivy.
Yeah, I'm
amongst
just
other
worried
things.
that when you're going to very wooded areas, it's very hard to find the nests. It's really, really hard. So it's best not to do it during the nesting season. And if you don't find it, it may be that it's not there, that there was nothing there, but it also may be that you didn't find it.
Yeah.
Quail would hide their nests in coyote bush, like under the coyote bush, and you'll never find it. And if you do the surveys, it's not likely that you'll even find them. They'll be very quiet and hiding, and they look like everything else.
Yeah.
So it's really better to not even do anything during the nesting season.
Yeah, and that's why we've scheduled the work outside of nesting season. So and that is to start in August.
Yeah, the new some of the new furniture, signs, and the benches, they're made out of metal or plastic. I think there was something very unique to this park when we only used wood, and it lasted 20 odd years. And while they look, very clear and very clean, I don't think they fit into this park because of the, it's supposed to be a nature preserve, and historically we didn't use plastic and metal there. So I don't know if that's something you can consider, but I saw those signs and it's easier to find your way, but I was disappointed to see the use of plastic and metal in general.
If I can speak to the signs really quick. So the signs that are being replaced, we are replacing, most of the signs that are being replaced are pressure treated lumber. So that's what we're taking out of the preserve, because we don't want to put that out in the preserves anymore. They're being replaced with redwood or Douglas fir, which is more natural. And then we aren't using any plastic. We are using metal for the signs, but from a staff resource perspective, it's much easier to produce the metal signs and get those out versus trying to hand hewn signs and carve them. It's just the labor that would take to do that for all the signs would be more than we can spare at the current moment. I personally I enjoy wooden signs. It's great where we can use them and do them, but it's from a cost perspective, and then from just staffing, we don't have it within the preserve to do those.
Maybe you can ask the foothills volunteers, maybe they can do that. I don't know. It's just like, everywhere we have to do cuts, and the result is sort of, it's not a huge issue, but it's a little less than it was in terms of the natural atmosphere of the park. So like I say, I'm not asking you to remove them or anything. I'm just saying this is something that if we see like over time, things become more and more urbanized, and this place should not be. foothills especially. I have a specific question about the area where I have a lot of, I'm sorry, guys, I have a lot here. The area where the power lines were removed. It goes from Alexis Drive down towards Arrestradero Creek.
Yes.
And there's a wetland there that pretty late in the season still had a lot of tadpoles and wetland plants and so on. You and I walked there, and I walked there afterwards a few times. Are you looking to preserve that wetland somehow?
It's always in the open space's best interest to best we can restore and maintain the preserved unnatural state. At this time, there's no current plans for it. It doesn't mean that there won't be a plan for it down the road. It's just we have to be mindful and talk with our partners in utilities so none of the work that we do gets undone by them while they're working on their undergrounding process.
How do we help you promote restoration, or at least, not to have that wetland disappear and become and dry out?
I think you, just by bringing it up, I think you're doing enough, and we'll go back with staff and take a look at what we can do. Because I know that is kind of a special spot, so we'll make sure that's not getting impacted any further.
Thank you. You talked about, you were asked about wildlife and whether you see any changes. You can't really, you can get a feel for things, but you need monitoring to know what is actually happening to wildlife. Is there any effort to monitor any of the species, whether common or rare?
The only ongoing monitoring within the preserve that I'm aware of is with Puma Project out of UC Santa Cruz. Some of the animals that they work with and study do pass through the preserve. So we've been in contact with them in the past when there is one in the area. Other than Puma Project, we don't have the staffing to currently track any animals or do any studies.
Okay. Would be good to have some, I don't know if there's any grants for that you can get to monitor some of the bird species or plants. Are there any wildlife accidents? Do you have any numbers on animals that have been?
Not exact numbers. I know of a couple incidences where wildlife were struck by vehicles, and that's something that we're working to prevent on a daily basis, but also working on education programs with folks to get people to slow down when they're driving through the preserves. It's a very sad situation when that does occur. But I'm only aware of a couple incidences. But as far as an exact number goes, there's always something that happens outside of the ranger's purview. We can't be everywhere at once, but I'm aware of a few incidences.
Maybe if you try to monitor the number of deer. I mentioned that before. Deer, they have small home ranges. They don't go very far. A small herd uses the same area for a very long time. And so if you have an idea of there's one little hare that Arrestradero that I see almost every time I go there. Maybe if you kind of being able to figure out how many there are in that group and what their trajectory is, that would be helpful. Shouldn't be too hard because they're very visible. I guess my last question is on our on Foothills. I'm not at Arrestradero yet. Is the new road that was built from the water tower, was paved with asphalt from the water tower to Alexis Drive without any permit from the city to do so, or any environmental review. It was just somebody felt that they should pave that road, and there we go. So can you talk about that a little bit, and I don't know if this is the right time, or do you want to come back, especially on a different meeting on that? But now what? Is, I guess, the question.
I'll hand it off to Steve here in a second, but as far as basically, we weren't consulted on the scope of that work, and I don't feel appropriate commenting on it. It was for background information, it was a dirt fire protection road that ran from Station 8 down to Alexis Drive. That, as Commissioner Kleinhaus spoke to, was paved by Department of Public Works, but the ranger staff had no input on it. So I'll let Steve speak to it as well.
Well, we did understand that there was going to be, including the park supervising ranger, that there was going to be work performed at that. That was from the top of the water tower access. But I think the scope of the work may not have been correctly understood by our staff. So one of the things that we have done, we've reached out to Public Works, and we are definitely working with them on a weekly basis to understand future projects that are happening around in the open space areas, to completely understand, anything that happens within the preserves, how it's done, what's the intent of the work to be done out there. So I think we're getting a lot more information and a lot more collaboration, basically, by us reaching out and working with them as partners, basically, so we don't have a silo effect that might have come into play some time ago. So what we're trying to do basically is to reach out to them, find out what happened on that one, and we can definitely bring some more information when we have more information to you at a later time.
So you're looking at the process and
Yep.
improving the process and the communication.
Correct.
So accidents, if you like this one, which was really not approved by council. They only approved to put a kind of a little ring where there was already asphalt around the water tower, and what happened was a new road. New road has other implications because now it allows bicycles, it allows other, so we need to understand more about that and discuss that more. And I would like that to come back to us for discussion, not only as how you improve the processes, which is really important, and thank you for that, but also now what about that specific road? Like there was no mitigation, there was no discussion, there is new uses that were not allowed before. There's a lot here that was never discussed. So maybe we need to have a better understanding of what's happening there now and what the trajectory of what's going to happen there later might be. And if they need to mitigate somehow for some of what happened there, the Public Works may need to do some mitigation, and maybe that's your funding for that wetland. So, I mean, they just went and paved a road without any consideration. My battery is gone, so I can't even see my questions on Arrastradero, but I remember some of them. But maybe if you want to go on for Foothills, and then I'll get to Arrastradero later.
Sure. Let's move on to Commissioner Greenfield.
Thank you. I second Commissioner Kleinhaus's concern about the paved road, and in fact, the paved pathway around the water tank wasn't actually repaved. Everything else was added, so it was unfortunate event, and fully appreciate the effort you're going to interdepartmentally to improve processes moving forward. But the question remains, what do we do about this situation? And if the pathway is going to stay, what permitting do we need to get retroactively, or removing it would be difficult, would leave it an environmental scar as well. It's hard to get all the asphalt out, that's understood. But there are issues, including the new access. Regarding the trail signs, were the metal signs created in the in-house shop at MSC?
No, we have a contractor we go through. So it's generally we kind of split the work 50-50 between in-house versus out-of-house. So those particular ones were done out-of-house.
I was just trying to make a plug for the MSC tour where you can see
Yeah.
the in-house shop where they create signs, which is cool. I had no idea that existed. Thank you. Could you talk about why that you have seasonal trail closures at Pearson and Restadero?
So the seasonal trail closures were outlined in the 2001 Trail Management Plan. Essentially, when it's due to the soil makeup of the preserve, which tends to be very clayey. If we get half an inch of rain within 24 hours or 1 inch of rain over the course of a week, the trail becomes very saturated. And so for both public safety reasons and also for environmental reasons, we close the trail. So that way we're preventing damage and erosion runoff, and also preventing potential trip and falls from folks walking on those trails. And the reason, if you've been out to Pearson or Rastdale, you know some of the trails are that the gravel trails, and then we also have the natural dirt trails, and that was because the public feedback process of the trail management plan, folks wanted to have a few trails that felt natural, and so that's why those were left dirt while the rest of them were all graveled.
And so the gravel trails are not closed, but the natural dirt ones are closed?
Yes.
Okay. Thanks. Backing up to the Commissioner Kleinhouse's comment about the plastic signs, I think she's probably referring to the signs that were put up during COVID to mark the one-way trails, just kind of a simple.
The Carsonites.
What do you call it?
The Carsonites. Yeah, they're fiberglass. Those were all pulled. Those are the same as if you're driving along a roadway, you see like the little mile markers or reflective.
Right.
Those have all been pulled out of the preserve. Those are generally supposed to only be for temporary things, or we'll use them for, most commonly you'll see them for like mile markers or road hazards, things like that.
Yeah, they were added quickly and to address a need.
Mm-hmm.
Regarding the visitations trending, so 2023 visitations were down 20 to 25%. Do you have numbers for 2024 the first half?
I don't currently.
Great to understand how we're trending when you get a chance.
I can look into that and ask the ranger that's in charge of that program. We're also hopefully we'll have, for next time I come, we'll have the visitation for Rastadero as well.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll have both of those for next year. But I'll try to get more specifically what 2024 is looking like currently and forward it to you.
Regarding these citations, I think there's now citations being issued for people who choose to drive in the exit when there's a backup line.
Well, that's constantly, yes. So there are some folks that choose that they want to drive through the outbound gate if they are frustrated or want to get in the preserve after the inbound gate closes at 8:30. That would fall under the reckless driving or disobeying a traffic sign under our code, just because they're creating a traffic hazard or things like that. The outbound exitway is signed both sides do not enter. So it's clearly marked. It's been that way since before my time here. So staff have the authority to stop vehicles when they do that, or if they speed on the park roadways for traffic stops. That's been a constant since the Ranger program was formed in the late 1960s.
Sure, I'd say I don't have any patience at all for someone who decides to go in the exit after the main entrance has been closed. But I do certainly appreciate the sentiment of frustration for an annual pass holder who's waiting behind a line of 4 or 5 cars and it's got So is there any thoughts to consider a second entry lane at any point?
The issue has been brought up previously. It's as far as for addressing with the Foothills Accessibility Plan, that was something that's been talked about. And that plan is going to come with construction drawings to you guys, I think, in the next couple of months. But
I think just, visually looking at it from when we were out there several weeks ago, space constraint might be an issue.
It does not look like a trivial problem to solve.
So, I mean, because when I was out there taking a look at the adjacent areas to it, I know that there's a culvert that goes over there. And so to figure out how you would widen that enough to allow for 2 lanes with an exit might be, prohibitive by just the spatial without, encroaching into the native areas and paving a little more.
If you were to slide the entrance station building over a bit, that would help, but that sounds non-trivial too.
But definitely things that can be looked into.
Thank you. It's great to see all the great improvements you made, Mike. You've been definitely got your feet underneath you, and
thank you.
Things are progressing really well. It's great to see being fully staffed now, and hopefully get the staff increased. And really appreciate everything you're able to offer to our open space preserves and the support of the rest of the staff coming on. So thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Commissioner Oche?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you very much for the presentation. I didn't know so much about coyotes, so thank you for educating us on that. I just have a few questions. On page 5 of the slides, did you mean the 29 citations were issued in 2023 or 2022?
2023, I realized that there was a date
I
issue on both of those. So on slide 5, it should be both 2023, not 2022.
I see. On page 10, you mentioned 32 trees were cleared. Do we keep a track of what we plant versus what we cleared?
Next. We haven't historically. I know we planted one memorial tree this year. It's been historically a struggle to planting trees is never a guaranteed solution because we have trees that die off and then we have to plant more trees. So historically, the staff hasn't kept track of what trees are planted. We do contract with Grassroots Ecology. They help with native plant plantings a lot of the times within the preserve. But I don't have numbers on that right now as far as trees planted, other than the one I know that was planted in May. So, yeah.
Thank you. Quick question. Please, could you speak a little bit about the fire fuel reduction program? What's the process in summary?
So all the fire fuel reduction work is outlined by the fire management plan for the foothills. It was first put in place in 2009, and then I think it was updated again in 2017. And then we're going through the process right now with a new update. So that should be out hopefully later this year, early next year, to be more in line with the community wildfire preparedness plan for Santa Clara County. But all the work is outlined is based on in the plans as they currently were assessed by a fire ecologist, and they made recommendations based on what staff was already doing and what they could do better. And then out of that came a list of projects that these are what has to be done annually. This is what has to be done every few years. And then the priority of those projects and where they lie. So for like Page Mill Road, for example, that was a higher priority because that is an evacuation route for a lot of the folks that live up on Southern Skyline. And then the work that was done along there took about 8 or 9 weeks to have done. And that's every 3 years that work is done. It was previously done before 2021. It was done in 2018. And so it just, on a 3-year window, it generally will be completed. I think there was a 1-year delay just because or 2-year delay, excuse me, it was done in 2022. So it was 4 years. So I guess, yeah, 1 year delay due to COVID. And then with the area that's behind Alexis and Bandera Drives, on the plan is designated as it's FC4, so Foothills Control 4 is what the plan outlined it as, but it was mainly to the reason the work was done there is to prevent if there's a fire that starts in the residential area, it won't spread into the wildland, and then vice versa, if there's a fire within the wildland, the behavior of that fire will become much more calm as it approaches the homes and give firefighters a chance to extinguish the fire before it impacts the homes, or improve the survivability of the homes in that area. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Great presentation, great photos, the prettiest picture of traffic cones I've seen. It was a great overview, and it's clear that the operations are very strong in the nature preserves. And I really want to focus my comments more on how the commission is related with the preserve rather than operations, because it's not the charge of the commission to direct staff and their operations and what they do specifically in the park and how they maintain it. So I really want to focus on sort of policy level, and something that we were heavily involved in is the entrance fee. And just a quick clarifying question is that the entrance fee revenues, those funds stay with the park operations.
Yeah.
And we sort of knew it was not necessarily going to cover impacts, but now it's been a few years and you've seen increased trail use and the new projects that have been taken on. Do you feel like it's realistic in terms of what we can expect in terms of visitor revenue to cover the experienced impacts to the preserve in line with maybe how other jurisdictions run this, or do you feel like it's out of whack in any way?
I currently feel that it's in alignment with other jurisdictions, with Santa Clara County Parks in particular. And I don't see a need for changing it anytime soon at this point. I think it's good right where it's at.
Sure. And it is also behavioral in terms of sort of mitigating too many people in the park at once. So lots of purposes being served. And the last one is just a solution or a suggestion. I think what you spoke to about the staffing and the seasonality and how it's changed makes complete sense that would change over the years. And I think you have all of the data that you need to tell that story, like doing an aoristic analysis of how the visitor habits have changed and then how the staffing model has evolved over the years. But I think the commission would be in support of any sort of operational changes that the staff recommends and anything that we can do from a policy level up here.
Thank you.
Yeah, those are all my comments. Other additional comments from Vice Chair Freeman?
Yeah, actually, I thought about one other. On the, I guess there's a point in time, I guess, when the park closes and not allow additional visitors in. How often is that happening?
With people trying to go around the other side of the gate, that's like a weekly problem. It's easily weekly, if not almost daily. It'd be somewhere between those two. With people going around the outbound gate.
No, I'm asking about.
He means like maxed out
When you have
visitors.
Maxed out. So sorry, I misinterpreted. As far as maxed out on the parking, is that what you're asking? We haven't maxed out on parking in the last 2 years. I think the last date was April 2021 was when the park
No,
closed.
I thought there was a point in time when there were no more visitors coming into the park because of the number of people there.
Yes,
Is that based on parking or?
That was based on parking.
Okay.
Yeah, so we have about 300 spots within the park. And so we have basically a cutoff limit. We have a car counter. So we know exactly roughly about how many cars are enter the preserve. And when we get to that point, then that's when we would close the preserve. And we haven't had one of those dates. We've come close, but we haven't had one of those dates since April 2021. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I'll just add, there was a formula put in place, like maybe 3.1 people per car or something like that. And so there's the official limit is the number of visitors to the preserve at a given time. And that's based on car counts multiplied by this factor.
Yep.
And then that's purely based on the number of cars that go through the entrance.
Yep.
And exit through the entrance.
Back to Commissioner Kleinhaus.
So yeah, for Restradero, my primary question has to do with the recommendations of the ad hoc from last year. We looked at a lot of the trails. We made recommendations, especially related to unauthorized trails. And we, when I visited with you, we saw some of the unauthorized trails are being maintained to continue using them, making them very comfortable for people to use. So I was wondering whether staff is implementing any or which of the recommendations that the ad hoc has made for Arrestradero.
Yes, so as far as the seasonal or the unauthorized trails that you mentioned, or the basically spider webbing of social trails, specifically like around the Arrestradero Bowl area, correct? We haven't taken any action on those yet. I think we were just kind of assessing them. That's something moving forward staff is going to look at and see how we can kind of get it back in alignment with the trail management plan, but we're in the midst of doing a contract update. So going to a new contract for our trail management folks. So we have Northwest Woodland Services currently that does all the main heavy lifting of the trail maintenance within the preserves. So once we complete that process, then we'll maybe start looking at how we can best restore some of those other spots or get them back in alignment.
Is that the same group that is implementing the trails now?
That's the same ongoing maintenance. So contract. So we have a Northwest Woodland Services does all of the current trail maintenance. I think they've done so since about the last 20 years or so.
Yeah, okay. So do you provide them with a map that says this is the scope of work, and then you can say, okay, this area is not, some of those, at least one of the 3 trails that connect the 2 bowls don't maintain it?
Yeah, there is a scope of work, and it refers back to the trail management plans for both Foothills and Arrestradero. So it's just a matter of once we have that contract in place, then we can go ahead and start scheduling that work that was recommended, but we have to get the contract in place first before we can proceed.
Okay, so given that they've been maintaining it now, even though it's not in the maintenance plan, would be good to point out to them which trails should not really be maintained.
Yeah, we'll discuss that with them. I think some of the cuttings that I think you had observed were not necessarily from the contractor, might have been from our staff or even maybe general public. So making sure those are clear across the board, which ones we're going to restore and which ones we're not. But the bigger restoration work for restoring the tread, things like that, back to a more native environment is going to have to come from the contractor. We don't have the ability to do that in-house. So that's a much more involved process that'll have to take place.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
You also mentioned linking the northern and southern ends of the park, and I'm trying to visualize, and I'm not sure. There's a new trail, or?
No, it's Meadowlark Trail. So in the 2001 trail maintenance plan for Arrestradero Preserve, it outlines a portion of Meadowlark that was a seasonal trail. Within the text of the document, though, it says that staff can choose, if the use demands it, they can choose to weatherize this portion and make it an all-season trail. The stipulation is that the trail tread would have to be under 20% grade, and that you would have to be a hard packed surface, and that's so it's under that grade and it's a hard packed surface. So then we opted to go ahead and do that work.
Okay, thank you for the clarification and for all the work you're doing.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I want to thank Commissioner Oche for reminding me. I was remiss to ask about the replanting of the trees, which you did mention. So there have been more trees that have been removed than have been replanted over the past few years.
Yeah, the trees that were removed are trees that have basically fallen. So we've had trees fall from a number of issues, either from the drought with sudden limb loss in the oaks. We've also, with the storms, the last couple of years, we had a few trees fall.
Right. So is it the goal of staff to replant on at least a 1-to-1 basis of what?
It hasn't traditionally been a goal of staff to replant on a one-to-one basis. We kind of let nature take its course. So if nature has a tree that falls naturally due to storms or droughts, then generally we'll clean it up if it's in a, the open space philosophy is try to go not as hands-on as possible. So if we have a tree that falls due to storms, we'll clean it up if it's impacting something like a fire fuel reduction zone or a visitor use area like a road, a trail, a picnic area. Otherwise, we generally leave those to be so they decompose in place.
Similarly, if a tree sprouts, you let it grow.
Yeah, so it's essentially, and a lot of times, especially with bay laurels and oaks, if they fall, they are capable of regrowing from their stump material, the core material, new sprouts. And so we let them do what they do if they're not impacting anything immediately. But otherwise, no, we don't have a concerted plan right now to replant for every tree that falls within the preserve.
And what's the status of the gum trees and the eucalyptus trees in the 7.7 acres that some were slated for potentially getting removed?
Actually, do you want to take that with?
Yeah, and as part of that plan to remove and replant?
Yeah, we just got funding for a CIP for eucalyptus removal within the open space preserve. So myself, Steve, Sarah, we've all been out looking at those sites and trying to figure out the scope of work so we can go out to bid for that. And then that would be a part of it is as we remove those, restoring those areas to native vegetation. So
that means replanting trees?
Could include planting trees, also native grasslands. I would argue that the foothills probably has more of a need for native grasslands than it has a need for forests. It's, to use an example, Wild Horse Valley has lost, I think, about 23 acres of grasslands over the last 50, 60 years, just because of encroaching forest between the bay laurels and then the coyote brush. So I think planting trees is not the full answer. I think it's part of the solution, but I think that's a much more integrated plan. That's something that we would work with like grassroots ecology on implementing, since their headquarters or nurseries right there within the preserve. So
will your plan, before you remove the trees, we already know what you're planning to we have a plan to replant?
I think we have a general plan. We don't have a site specific plan, but we have a general plan for restoring those areas.
And do we have a process for, once we have a plan, keeping track of what gets replanted and what we're still waiting to do? I'm just concerned. It sounds like you don't have much of, you're not tracking replantings much, and so.
So the intent right now is for fuels reduction in the urban, wildland urban interface areas. We're going to start out with Esther Clark as the initial phase because that has the highest impact at this point. We are currently working with the other departments within Palo Alto to make sure everybody is on board with this. Meaning, our reforestation department and everyone basically that has input that can, provide, good references of how we go about it, what the work is going to entail, how we're going to go about removing it, and potential replanting in the future if it's deemed needed for that area. So have we talked about that yet? No, we have not. Right now we're in the, okay, how do we get this done phase? Once we figure that one out, because this is the first of probably several years that we'll have to go through this for the fuel abatement work. So once we figure it out, which is kind of where we're at now, then we'll take a look at the other ones with your input on that thing. So
it sounds like you've got a handle on establishing the right processes again.
Yeah.
Look forward to updates.
Yep. Thank you.
Follow up on the question about the eucalyptus and the 7.7 acres. You showed us a picture of a red-shouldered hawk. Do you know where they nest?
They generally like to be in the tree lines.
In eucalyptus?
Eucalyptus is not native to California, so.
No, but they seem to prefer taller trees, and in many cases, that's the tallest trees in the landscape. So if there, maybe you can, since it's not happening tomorrow, that you're removing those trees, can you check if there are, if there is a nest, they'll use it more than 1 year? And maybe not remove, I don't know if they're there nesting there or not, but if they are, that's worth preserving.
The work that would be done would be outside of nesting season, and then we're also going to have it follow our BMPs, so it'll
I know,
be
but what
surveyed.
happens at the end is that the bird that used to nest somewhere has to go look for a different home, and we lose those sounds that they make and their presence, and we lose part of the ecosystem in the park because we took the nesting sites away. It's not that there's not other trees, but they do like eucalyptus especially, maybe because they're the tallest usually. But it would be good if there are nests to just not remove them, the tree.
We'll take it under advisement. We'll definitely look for them, but we're still quite a ways out from at least the 7.7 acres. But yeah, we'll take it under advisement.
Any other comments? Great. This is a discussion item only, and I think we've done that. So thank you very much for the update. We appreciate it. We always love when you come visit with us.
Yeah, you're welcome.
All right, we'll move on to our last item of the evening, which is the ad hoc committee and liaison updates. So anyone that has an update either on progress with their ad hoc committee or an update from their liaison assignments. Commissioner Oche?
I'm not sure why you picked me first one.
I caught your eye, so.
I can go. Thanks, Jay. So during the chili cook-off, Commissioner Krebs and I had an awesome conversation with Brindley Wood. Brindley is the teen program assistant for our city, and she has so many fabulous programs that she's planning for our youth. And courtesy of Commissioner Krebs' connection, we were able to talk to the president and CEO of the 5 Pockets Foundation because we see the gap. Everybody needs to learn about money. So we all need to learn about, make sure our kids are well-grounded in financial literacy. So we had a meeting with the president and a member of her team a few days ago, and we're hoping that they would share a proposal of, the way forward of how we could, train our youth and also incorporate it into the beautiful plan that Brindley has. So we're hoping to share more updates on that as we progress. Commissioner Way isn't here, as we all know, and we're yet to meet with Adam Howard and Christopher Sanchez. But we hope to meet with them once the program calendar is finalized, and then we'll share back with the commission on ways we'll be helping the team as well. So far, 2 themes that we have identified will be the mental health side of things and then the financial literacy, but I'm sure there are also other themes that are important for our teen and youth that we would want to focus more on. She mentioned that the upcoming Youth Mental Health Summit has been finalized and the date is on 5th of October. Commissioner Way will be leading a panel for anxiety management. And we're hoping that she's also planning to recruit speakers, including a Stanford graduate student who is taking kind of like an Oxford creative writing class at the moment. So hopefully tying down storytelling with, integrating it with youth mental health. She's also producing, she talked about the lady and she said the person or the resource person will be producing a youth team, kind of like a documentary about the Silicon Valley youth mental health as well. We all know, past, stories of things that have happened here in our community. So we're hoping to move forward with that. And that's all from my end for now. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Just go down the line, Commissioner Krebs.
Let's see. I think probably the most important, and Sarah has been so helpful in leading the effort to bring the skate park collective back now. They have a new name, and we've had several meetings with them, with the Friends of the Parks and with Sarah and with the skaters themselves. And so I think they're in a good place, on a good track. They have identified the amount of money that they would like to raise by December. So perhaps they can be into the CIP plan for next year, perhaps. And I think there will be some good stuff coming in the next week, 2 weeks. I'm pretty excited about it. And there's a lot of enthusiasm among the skating collective, even after, what, 5 years, 4 years? 5 years. Yeah, something like that. So that's good. So thank you, Sarah, for your leadership on that. It's been great. I don't know anything about the swimming pool except for it's open and everybody's having a good time.
It's packed.
Yes, packed. And Vice Chair Freeman and I have spent time with the courts and the fields, but I think we had a good report from Adam today and enough discussion about that. And I think we're waiting until the Cubberley Ad Hoc Committee gets back from vacation to see where we are with Cubberley and any potential agreement between the school district and the city to begin to talk about what to do about Cubberley. I think that's about it, except for the dog parks.
Yes.
Any news?
No news. I did actually talk with some stakeholders, so we'll link up with staff about maybe a meeting.
Yeah, we can.
Next month.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. I like the rebrand of the skate park. That's a cool name. Vice Chair Freeman?
And covered a lot of the things that we've talked about as far as the field and tennis. We did, and then we did have a meeting with Lom and I think Sarah on the talking about the golf operations. So we'll wait to hear about first tee and what's happening with that. But seems like golf is doing well, so that's good news. But yes, that's about it on that.
Commissioner Greenfield.
Thank you. Number of ad hocs met over the past month. The park dedication FY25 ad hoc met. Commissioner Wei and I met with Kristen, and we had a list of 7 different sites we were looking for more information on. Crossed off most of them off the list, at least disqualifying them as low-hanging fruit. But there's a couple that we're pursuing, and hopefully we'll be able to make some progress. We're waiting for a little more research from staff, and these are things that Councilmember Burt was interested in, so we need to give him some feedback on that as well. The Nature Preserve Access Policy Ad Hoc, also were previously known as bikes and e-bikes, met with staff, and we worked to kind of carve out what we're aiming to make some progress over the next few months as this ad hoc for the work for this ad hoc. So that was good to meet with staff to an initial meeting and kind of sort out where we're heading. And similarly, the same thing for the BCCP ad hoc, or the Baylands Comprehensive Conservation Plan, trying to sort out what work would be in scope for the ad hoc this year, and how to move forward with that. And it's great to see that we have the staff liaisons clarified for the ad hocs, and the ad hoc and liaison page updated with the latest stuff. But thanks, Javad, as always, and staff and Kristen for getting that fleshed out.
Thank you, Commissioner Kleinhaus.
I don't have any additional anything to add.
Okay. Right. That brings us to Commissioner Board Member questions, comments, announcements, or future agenda items. I think Steve was kind enough to give us the preview for the next month's agenda with the Valley Water Tide Gate Public Improvement Ordinance, or Park Improvement Ordinance, sorry. And then the First Tee Partnership. So I think that is our plan for August. Are there any other questions, Commissioner Grayfield?
Yeah, I would say it would be interesting to see when if and when the airport plans can come to the Parks and Rec Commission for input. Heard a number of community members talking about this. It does seem like an appropriate overlap for our purview. And so we'd interested in seeing when that might get agendized.
Sure, we can work with staff to see what and when that might be appropriate to return to the commission. Commissioner Kleinhaus?
I would still like to have it, not necessarily next time, but that road in Foothills, I'd like to discuss. So what's happening now? I'd like to see that come back. And for the airport, I agree. And I was hoping that if possible, staff can receive and present the outcome of the survey in detail, not just general buckets, because they have that survey online right now.
Just one item that we wanted to also bring up to the commission is that the work plan it will be going to City Council on August 19th. And the format will be an action item with PRC kind of sandwiched in between two other committees and commissions. So just.
Thank you.
Backing up to the Foothills path issue, perhaps a bit rather than coming back to the commission, perhaps you might want to work with the Open Space Preserve ad hoc or Open Space Preserve liaisons, Commissioner Kleinhaus and myself. So maybe if there's something to discuss, we could potentially talk.
Or an update provided once there's a resolution or path forward.
Yeah.
We're available if that helps.
Yeah, I appreciate it. It's going to be something more so that needs to come from Public Works because like it was completely outside of our wheelhouse. So
understood. It's
but if we can see about getting them over here.
Okay. There's nothing else. We will adjourn this meeting. Thank you, everyone.